Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 73. On today's show, got a bit of bad news we're going to talk about. We have a really good friend who's having a tough time.
And we'll go over the ocean to Japan for the release of Yakuza 0.
And probably the biggest news of the week, Square Enix is working on Marvel games. That's got to make you excited, Matt. It makes me excited too. Let's go. Hey everyone, special Monday edition of GameFace. We're all discombobulated at this point, all kinds of out of sorts. Wanted to do a show this weekend. There just simply weren't enough topics.
Yeah, and a bunch of stuff came out last week, but we didn't get a chance to play a ton of it.
Yeah, one of the topics...
The post office screwed me on one of my deliveries, so I couldn't play things in time.
Just to kind of let you know where we were sitting on Saturday, one of the topics would have been the fact that teabagging has been banned in esports. So that's where we were. That's the point that we were at for the show on Saturday. So we decided to wait a few days. Luckily, some stuff has gone down since then. Not all of it for the good, unfortunately. If you guys haven't heard by now, our good friend Marcus Beer had a massive heart attack on Sunday evening at his home. I don't know how much I want to share because obviously it's a lot of sensitive information. I've been in touch with his wife and been working with her on the crowdfunding for their medical bills. But I guess the Cliff Notes version is that he was playing games, which is one thing I do take solace in. He was playing video games when it happened, doing something that he loves. And their dog ended up alerting Marcus's wife, who had already gone to bed, that Marcus had had a heart attack. And the dog came into the bedroom and got her up. And she went in and discovered Marcus. His surgery was a success. He is in a medically induced coma right now. This was something that the doctors do on purpose to allow time for his body to heal, essentially, various parts of his body to heal. And they're going to be bringing him out of that medically induced coma here very soon, actually. It might even be any hour now. So we're all kind of waiting anxiously to get more news on the situation. In the meantime, today, we launched a crowdfunding benefit for Marcus and his wife to help cover medical expenses. It's been on the homepage of Sifted all day today. It was sent out through social media throughout the day today. Very, very proud of all of you guys, not just you guys, but the industry in general. We ended up hitting the goal in about 4.5 hours. So that's a testament to all you folks who went and donated. And even if you didn't donate, even if you're just sending positive vibes their way, that's great too. So tough times right now. I don't want to get too much into what happened with Marcus and I with GameFace other than to say that it doesn't matter anymore. And it hasn't mattered for a long time. Marcus and I had buried that hatchet a long time ago. But it does make you see how petty stuff like that is when something like this happens. And as soon as I heard this, I tried to spring into action and help them as much as I could. With the help of the head of PR from Bethesda, we set up the crowdfunding project, and it went better than we ever imagined. So they've already hit their goal, which was $20,000. The last time I checked, it was over $23,000. So people have continued to donate after we hit the goal that we had set up on the website, which is amazing. And not a bad thing. Like if you still feel like you want to donate, basically what we did is we set up the goal to be what they would have to pay out of pocket maximum for the year after their insurance kicks in. But we don't know yet. This could be something that Marcus has to go to rehab for a long time to work on, and it may end up going into next year. So that extra amount of money could help with that. It could also help with the fact that they are fostering a child right now, and his wife needs to spend a lot of time at the hospital, so they have to pay for childcare and things like that. So every little bit's going to help. Every dollar matters. And again, thank you guys so much for being so generous and helping Marcus out and his wife and their foster child. And I know if he was here, he'd be thanking you guys as well. And hopefully, he comes through this okay and we do bring him in here. And I'm sure he would love to come in here and thank you guys for all your support and all the retweets and all the messages of encouragement. We're waiting on Shauna which is his wife's name, to kind of guide us on how the messaging goes. I'm not going to give you guys any more information than what I just shared about what's going on. As she gives us the okay to kind of talk a little bit more about things, we will. You know us, we try to be as straightforward and honest with you guys as possible. So it'd be great if Marcus could come in here next week. Like, you just don't know. Yeah. He could be fine. He could wake up today and just be just like he was.
Never know.
So everybody stay positive. Everybody keeps sending positive vibes the way of the beer family. And hopefully not too long from now, we're having a beer with Marcus Beer. Although it'll probably be a light beer, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably.
But once again, thank you guys. This episode is dedicated 100% to Marcus Beer. Hopefully we make him proud. And let's get on the next topic. All right, undoubtedly the biggest news this week, Matt, and I'm sure as far as you're concerned, maybe the biggest news in a long time for in-games. No?
I am not a huge believer in Square Enix's ability to handle this property all that well.
So before we get into it, basically what happened is Square Enix announced a partnership with Marvel this week to create several video games based upon Marvel franchises. So the first one that's been announced is called the Avengers Project, and that's being developed basically by the folks who worked on Deus Ex. Matt, do you not have faith that team can deliver a great game?
Translating these characters into games has always been tricky.
Why, though? I mean, they're made for games.
Somewhat, but they've been a whole lot of bad ones.
Yeah.
So clearly not that no-brainer.
I commented on the site today.
I certainly hope Marvel's the one in charge of the writing.
Yeah,
let's
for
put
sure.
it that way. I think it's a little sad that probably means that's the end of Deus Ex for the time being.
You think? We'll get into that in a minute. Let's talk about the Marvel stuff first, and then we'll get into Deus Ex.
But again, it's like we're seeing, Crystal Dynamics is working on the Avengers thing, and basically you're like, okay, so that's why they're not doing the next Tomb Raider.
Right.
And on one hand, yeah, it's cool to have talent like that thrown at the Marvel license. At the same time, it's years away, and we don't know what they're doing.
Well, then the rumors came out today that the Montreal team, it may not be true, again, rumors, so take this with a grain of salt, but they're saying that the Montreal team is working on a Guardians of the Galaxy game, which, again, I think is great. Like, I'm all over this. Like, from my perspective, this is great news. Like, I would rather play a really good Marvel game than another Deus Ex, or probably even another Tomb Raider. Because I feel like we've got those. We've played these two reboots of Tomb Raider already. Like you said, superhero video games there's not exactly a rich catalog of great superhero video games at this point.
Especially not recently.
Well, I get
other than Batman.
Yeah, I mean, but if you look back 10 years ago, it was awful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, superhero video games were some of the worst. They were just shovelware, basically, and they were usually created to cash in on a movie license, some movie that's coming out. And
I think about 10 years, the last 10 years have basically been, there's been a lot of Activision finishing out contracts. Basically, like they had to make them.
Right.
That's certainly why the last couple of Spider-Man games happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you've only played video games for the last half decade, though, you would probably look at us and say, what do you mean most superhero games aren't great? Because they never suffered through all those terrible years.
You never played Marvel Rise of the Imperfects.
Oh, yeah.
You remember when EA got the Marvel license, we're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. No, it's not.
That is a good point.
So, the Legends, X-Men Legends stuff, and that was good. But, just because it's in the hands of a big developer that's done good stuff in the past doesn't mean it's going to work out okay. I mean, hopefully Marvel is more adept now at sort of managing their licenses with third-party companies, but we'll see. I am reserving judgment, but I am cautiously optimistic.
Matt, do you think maybe the key to these games being great is not having them released to coincide with films?
Oh, for sure. Like, you need to have them done when they're done.
They need to be, autonomous, completely separate from the films.
I mean, if they're planning them this far out, you're probably looking at something that's going to try to release alongside Avengers 4, probably.
When does that come out?
2019.
Okay. Well, hopefully it doesn't take that long.
2 years.
I mean, they finished up Deus Ex a while ago, and I'm assuming this contract
Deus
was
Ex
signed.
would be Guardians, so Guardians,
Right.
Who knows when that is, but the Avengers game that Crystal Dynamics is working on, they said more news in 2018, which to me says probably coming out in 2019, somewhere alongside.
See it first.
What would have been Infinity War Part 2, but now apparently has a different title. So I would say you kind of do the the synergy thing where you hope you release it alongside the movie. If it doesn't make it, you release it alongside the Blu-ray. That would kind of be my expectation. We'd see this in 2019.
Isn't it crazy, though, that they put out a trailer for this game already? I mean, it's a short teaser that doesn't give up hardly anything. But
yeah, well, you got to have something. You got to show, you can't play it the way EA did Star Wars. I don't think, where they're just like, we're doing it. Here's a logo. Bye. Here's one. Maybe I guess it's the equivalent of like the one shot of the snow speeder getting crushed by the walker.
Right.
And that was that. That's all we saw for a year.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is nowhere near as exciting, by the way.
No, it's just sort of destroyed Avenger pieces, which makes me think that it's again tied to the. Because that looks like Tony's like.
It looks like Civil War at the end of Civil War, right?
Well, no, it looks like Tony's future dream in Age of Ultron, where he sees everybody dead, and and they're like, "Why didn't you?" It looks like clearly at some point the Avengers are going to get their asses kicked, even harder than they've already had them kicked, and Thanos is probably going to do it, and. So this game will probably cover. I mean, they seem to imply that it's covering sort of the whole story, the whole cinematic universe story, maybe like Lego game style.
Yeah.
Maybe up to Infinity War or something like that. Which I'd be up for that. I mean, that's cool. I'm into that. Especially if you get the big question is going to be, and this is the real rub in any team. X-Men games are running into this too. It's like. You got to make everybody play well, and you make everybody play differently, and you got to make everybody play fun. It's got to be fun to play Iron Man, and to play the Hulk, and to play Black Widow, and to play. Maybe you don't put Hawkeye in. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible to make him fun.
No, but you got a bow. I mean, even he thinks it's ridiculous in Age of Ultron.
He makes a joke about it.
So I mean, that's a big task. You got to make basically at least 6, probably more characters fun to play that are very different from each other.
But do you think?
And they've never even managed one of them so far in the other games that I've. Although I like the Captain America game. It was a moderately okay ripoff of Arkham Asylum.
But do you think that it is going to be multiple characters? Because if you look at the games that the studio's made. That's not really how they've been. They've been one character that you play as through the entire game, and that character grows.
Well, it's an Avengers game. You got to play as at least a few people.
You think?
Yeah, no question. Like, you can't just like, here's your Avengers game, but you only get to play as Captain America. Like, no one's going to be down for that.
I think they would still.
I don't think.
As long as it's good. Because
you're going to be expected to be able to play as at least the 4 main Avengers. I think. Even if it's not, you can choose each one in every level, no matter what. Like. But it would you're going to have to play as Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, and Thor. I mean, those are going to be your no-brainer. You have to be able to play as them.
I just wonder, though, with the template that's kind of laid down with the way this team has designed games in the past, though, it's all about building that character up and him becoming more and more powerful as it goes. How does that play out with an Avengers game? Because you have these characters that are already really powerful.
Same as any, look at Marvel Heroes. Like, you start with no abilities and you upgrade your abilities as you level up. But that changed a lot. They did a major upgrade to that game the last couple weeks. And, at the beginning of the game, you're sort of doing basic stuff. By the end, you're bouncing shields off everybody's face, and Iron Man can call down 4 other suits, and
But how does that work with the narrative, though, in keeping it in the canon? You see what I'm saying?
Well, they all kind of upgrade as they go. Iron Man has a different suit in every damn movie because you got to sell the action figures.
Right.
And, everybody's got a different outfit. Everybody's got a different trick. Everybody pulls a couple of cool new moves. You just do, and you don't have to stick to canon that hard on that. If Captain America's throwing his shield in the way he did in Civil War in the level that's based on the first Avengers movie, no one's gonna mind. It's okay.
See, I would be okay with a game where I just played as one character, provided it's as good as the Deus Ex.
But see, in that case, you would just call it that one character. Like it wouldn't be the Avengers.
Right.
So that when you're making an Avengers game, you gotta play as the Avengers.
Yeah, so, I guess that's a good point.
I would be surprised if there wasn't some kind of multiplayer component too.
Yeah.
Which Tomb Raider has, so there's a template for that.
Right.
I mean, fingers crossed, I guess would be my.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. This is probably the most excited I've been for a superhero game maybe ever, other than maybe after the first Rocksteady Batman came out.
I was real excited for Arkham Knight, but I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
So. I don't think there's going to be a tank in this one you have to drive all the time, so maybe we'll be okay. But
that's a good point, too, because that was a case where there was a team in place that we trusted more than probably
something went terribly
top
wrong.
5 teams you trust. That would have been one of them. And still, it kind of left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. Obviously, if you go back through the shows, I did not dislike Arkham Knight as much as you. But But I think that maybe a little bit of that might be that I'm not as tied into Batman and the lore and the canon as much as you are.
Well, I just wanted to play as Batman and not as a canon.
Yeah.
I guess would be the way I'd put that. Just, Poochie the Bat Tank.
Yeah.
It's like, whenever the tank's not on screen, everyone should be asking, where's the Batmobile? No, I don't care where the Batmobile is. I want to do more Arkham stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't give me that.
All right, so let's move on and let's talk a little bit about Deus Ex. Obviously, this appears to be the sacrificial lamb here for Square Enix. A team can only do so much, and it looks like they're going to take the team off of Deus Ex to start working on this Marvel stuff. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's not tremendously surprising because from what we understand, Mankind Divided did not sell tremendously well.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because, I mean, they do seem to have been planning a trilogy here.
Yeah.
But
Did you enjoy Mankind Divided, Matt?
I liked it. I think we talked about it pretty extensively. That I like the concept of it. I like what it's trying to do. I don't know if it succeeds at doing it a lot. And also Adam Jensen feels like he was designed in another decade for a different game, and the rest of the world is this kind of pretty believable sort of thing, and then he's walking around like some kind of Hot Topic guy from. I mean, he's like. I felt like they really needed to revamp him or replace him, and I don't see them doing that because he's based on the art director. I think he looks exactly like him.
Yeah.
But there was a thing during my playing of that game. Sometimes it would cut back to Adam Jensen, and I'd just be like, "What are you doing here?" He doesn't fit the world of that game.
And I think that's the biggest problem is that when they sort of rebooted Deus Ex, I feel like the character model and the character just it never clicked with me.
It kind of works in the first one in Human Revolution. Because it's they got that kind of orange yellow glow to it. But Mankind Divided seemed to have a much more down to earth tone and feel and look. Yeah. And he's so elevated in terms of stylization that he just looked ridiculous. It was first person, so you didn't maybe think about it all the time. But every time it would go to a cutscene, it just looked like a bunch of normal people walking around and this dude in a costume.
Yeah.
And that's a nitpick really, but it's just sort of an example of all those little things add up to, as you say, it just doesn't click.
I kind of get the same vibe from Deus Ex that I kind of get from Dishonored. It just feels like this very drab, dystopian, depressing world. And I never get excited to go back into it. When I finally do and I play it, I have a good time, and then I put it down. I'm like, oh, that was fun. But then when I'm it's late at night and I've already worked all day and I have a couple hours before I need to go to bed, it's really hard for me to get motivated to start playing those types of games. And that's kind of, and look, I don't know what the reasons were for it selling so poorly. It could have been a million things, marketing, whatever. People just, maybe they got the first one, they didn't like it that much, or whatever. But
just part of the parade of underselling games for the Q3 and Q4.
And I mean, at the end of the day, what really matters is sales. And so if Square Enix isn't making enough money based upon the budget that they're putting into this, I mean, don't forget, Square Enix was disappointed with the sales of the first Tomb Raider reboot, and it sold amazingly well. So obviously the standards are pretty high at Square Enix for what it's expecting from the games that it develops and publishes. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the exact numbers for Mankind Divided, but I'm guessing probably worldwide it didn't sell a whole lot more than 1 million. I mean, it never really hovered in the sales charts. It, even in the UK where certain games tend to stick around for a long time because it's a smaller sample size, it never did that. It never hung around for months and months. This week...
And I didn't hear it mentioned again almost for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
It just wasn't on people's minds.
The DLC hasn't been a big deal. We've curated stuff for the DLC. No one seems to care about it.
Similar to the previous one. The DLC for that was nothing, too.
Yeah. So I can't say I'm all that sad to hear that it's going away in favor of one of these Marvel games. Because I know that the studio is obviously talented. I mean, if you look at Mankind Divided and Human Revolution... They're both technically great games. It's just the tone and kind of the vibe of the games, those sort of intangible things, are going to appeal to some people and not appeal to others. And for me, they just didn't appeal to me. And judging by sales, it looks like it didn't appeal to a lot of people either. So I say bon voyage to Deus Ex, in all honesty. I know that's going to probably rankle some feathers with some of the sifters, but I would much rather play a Marvel game of this quality than play another Deus Ex.
Maybe. I mean, if they take the Guardians premise and sort of maybe do with it kind of what Prey, the original Prey 2 was doing.
Yeah.
That would be an interest, like to be able to explore that kind of world that Guardians set up that was so different from the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That would be interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could have some really cool like spaceports and environments and action scenes. And so, I mean, there's a lot of meat there on that bone. So hopefully they do something like that. It's also funny that there's a little bit of Adam Jensen functionality-wise in Star-Lord.
Yeah,
like they're both guys that hit
a
button and their sunglasses go away.
Yeah,
Like it's funny that like you could play. They're also kind of a little snarky. I mean, the upside is like I'm thinking probably we're going to get the real voices for most of these actors for these games.
You'd think, yeah.
Certainly Chris Pratt will do anything you ask him to. So, I mean, he even did new lines for the Lego Dimensions on his Jurassic World character.
That's right, yep.
I mean, so it's like we're looking at something that clearly the production values are going to be very high. Budgets are going to be what they should be. Hopefully the time given the developers are going to be what it should be. And, we can only wait and see if it turns out to be something we want to play. Because it's interesting that they're kind of also going up, another Guardians game. So we got a Telltale Guardians story-driven game, and we're going to have
presumably
Montreal,
more action-based.
More action-based, but still probably pretty story-driven first-person game. It's just hard to know. I mean, that game is probably 3 years out. Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
So,
which is also a good sign because that means that this is a property that Marvel believes in long-term. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. A great movie.
Around the time of probably Guardians 3.
Yeah, the timing should work out. So I'm really excited. Matt's
certainly not in time for Guardians 2, which is, a few months away.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Matt's a little more guarded.
Show me the game first, pretty much.
Yeah. I'm keeping my hopes high, but we shall see. So let's move on.
There's certainly worse choices of publisher for this.
I mean, could you think of a better publisher/developer to work on it?
I mean, I'd like to see
like
Insomniac.
A Naughty Dog
I'd like to see Insomniac just do all of them instead of just Spider-Man. But no, I mean it's solid. I mean, it's certainly I'm glad.
I think Marvel made a good choice here.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go back to like Activision or EA or
Right.
something. EA is having enough trouble with the Star Wars games as it is.
Yeah.
So,
that tale will be told this Q4, I think.
Yeah.
No excuses after Battlefront 2. That'll be it. So, all right, let's move on. Now we are going to talk about EA. So on Sunday, randomly, one of his community managers went on Twitter and wrote a tweet with just one word, #Skate4. And publications have been describing it like the internet meltdown and Twitter was broken and that's not true. I mean,
there are some other things going on.
Yeah, I think so. But there is a very, I don't know if it's that small, but there is a very passionate audience for Skate. Skate 3, the best of the Skate games, I would say. But also much different than the Tony Hawk games, which are a little more arcadey. Skate was a little more realistic. It used sort of the 2 analog stick trick mechanics. What did you think of the Skate games, Matt?
I liked them. I mean, by that point, I was kind of over the skateboard game thing. But I definitely, in a world where we'd gone through all those just endless action sports clones, Activision's iterations on the pro whatever thing over, all the people that tried to jump on the Me Too thing, all that crap Acclaim made us play. Certainly Skate felt like it was a game made with some soul and some love and an eye to making something not just different, but arguably more of an emulation of the skating. Not that I'm not a skateboarder, but it felt more like you were riding a device with wheels on it that you were trying to stay balanced on and do the very. I mean, the physics of the world felt more believable than Tony Hawk's arcade style, and I enjoyed it. I didn't play it to death really, but like when people talk about how usually it seems like people either think Skate 2 or Skate 3 is the best one. And when they talk about stuff like that, I definitely see where they're coming from, even if it's not like on top of my list.
Yeah, so I did skate for a long time. I skated for over a decade, hardcore for 10 years, and then I slowly kind of just drifted away. My body just couldn't do it anymore. When I would fall and get hurt, I'd be down for a week instead of 2 days, and eventually your body just tells you can't do it anymore. And I have some of my old friends who I used to skate with who do still skate. And they tell me I'm crazy for saying that, but I don't think they've had reconstructive knee surgery either. So So as somebody who did skate for a long time, was a part of the culture and everything, I 100% agree with you. It is far more realistic than the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise. But I enjoyed the Tony Hawk games far more than I enjoyed the skate games. There's a very fine line between realism and fun. And I go back to when I worked at GameSpot way back when the first Xbox launched and Amped Freestyle Snowboarding came out. I hated that game. And I think I've mentioned on the show before how shocked I was that right out of the gate there were so many Xbox fanboys. I could not understand it. I'm like, they've done nothing. Why do you guys just blazingly, like, blindly defend this company? And man, like, I've reviewed Amped. I don't know. I think I maybe give it like a 5 or a 6 at GameSpot. And oh my God, that was my first real brush with hate mail from fanboys. Like the first time I really came under like attack to the point where like my boss had to come and talk to me and be like, don't let this get you down. It happens to everybody. You know, you're going to have to get used to it. You're going to have thick skin if you're going to work in this industry. But that was kind of my first brush with all that madness. And then the second brush was Sonic Adventure 2. Boy, let me tell you about that one.
Yeah.
And my argument with Amped was that realism doesn't always mean fun. Sure, you know, it was an accurate replication of what it's like to manage your edges as you ride down a hill, but it was also just infuriatingly like difficult and imprecise, like snowboarding, mind you. These things are really hard. Snowboarding and skateboarding are incredibly hard. I played sports growing up my whole life, moved over to extreme sports in like my early teens, and kind of stuck with that. And, you know, I played football and all these other sports. Nothing was as hard as skateboarding or snowboarding. They are challenging. So you're right. To say that it's more realistic to make the games more difficult to play, 100% correct. But I tend to not play video games to be frustrated, as evidenced by Shane versus Bloodborne. Like, that's just not something I enjoy out of my games, and I realize everyone's different. But I also think that maybe that's why Skate didn't sell especially well. I think the first one sold pretty well, and then as the sequels came out, they had less and less people.
It was
which is kind of typical.
Well, it was also sort of the decline of that genre as well. It was in the tail end of that fad, and I think that combined with exactly what you're saying led to sort of, you know, if you were like kind of not into the skateboarding stuff anymore, but you maybe were kind of interested. Skate is not an I'm kind of interested game.
No.
Like, you got to commit.
No. And what drove me most mad about Skate was that because it used the dual analog stick control scheme, you look at each analog stick like a clock, and each hour on a clock. And each hour, you had to hit precisely to land a move. And so you're ollieing using the analog stick, and then you have to reorient the stick and make sure you're pointing that stick in the exact, not 2 o'clock, not 1 o'clock, you know, you have to get it exactly on that mark. And when you have analog sticks that don't kind of have those notches in them, like you had with like the GameCube controller, where there's kind of like that octagon, and then the stick can kind of seat in those, so you know exactly where the stick is. If it's just a perfect circle, like, the difference between like 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. is so negligible that it's like, there was one trick in Skate, I think it was only like 2 or 3 hours in, where you had to do a very specific flip to a very specific grind to a very specific dismount. And I remember sitting there trying that trick, I think it was like an hour and a half, and it was like 3 hours into the game. And I'm just hitting this rail over and over. And again, that's what skateboarding is like. When you're learning a trick in skateboarding, you do the same thing over and over and over for hours and hours and hours.
Even just having gone to school with skateboard, I remember I would, you know, stand around near places or talk to some of my friends, and at some point you would inevitably ask as a non-skateboarder, do you guys ever land anything?
Right.
Yeah.
And you get bored watching it, too.
Yeah.
At first, you're excited. You're like, oh, wow,
and their
cool
answer
skating.
tended to be like, yeah, like once a day.
Right.
You know, like, it's just, that's how dedicated you have
Well,
to
when
be.
you're learning new tricks, yeah. I mean, and the idea is that you learn that new trick in a day, hopefully in a day, and then you add it to your repertoire that you can do whenever. But you're right. And for innocent bystanders who come up on skateboarders, like, cool, skateboarders. And then they sit there for 5 minutes. They're like, it's the same thing over and over. You're trying this trick over and over. You can't do it. And it's absolutely, Skate is realistic. But it doesn't mean that it's fun. And so I hope that with Skate 4, that they take that into consideration, that they really look at kind of the feedback that they got, and even some of the old reviews that they got for Skate 3, because I reviewed it for GT back when it came out, and my review was pretty significantly lower than a lot of people. And this is coming from someone who skated. And most of the people reviewing the games probably never did skateboard. It may not have the affinity for the sport that I had for it. So I hope that they go back and kind of look at those notes and try to make a game that's a little bit more fun for people who just don't like being punished by games.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the fact that they're not up against Tony Hawk Pro Skater now probably means they can dial it back to a more arcade kind of compromise now, and not be accused of being too similar to the competition, because there is no competition.
Mm-hmm. And then today, Tony Hawk on Instagram or somewhere made a comment that he is working on a new skateboarding game with a really good people. Highly doubtful is that, and he said not Activision. He said not Activision. So this whole thing is starting to kind of gel together as like Skate 4 is really coming. And how interesting would it be if Tony Hawk is the...
Tony Hawk Skate.
Exactly.
Right.
It could be Tony Hawk Skate 4. I mean, that's really what it could be, which would lend some credence to the franchise that EA really didn't have before. It was always kind of like the redheaded stepchild of skateboarding games to the average consumer. I
predict it'll say the logo will be Skate, and the 4 will be an A, and then it'll say Hawk. With the 4 is the A and Hawk going down. It'll be like a cross.
That's very possible. Yeah, they'll make T-shirts and stickers and all that stuff. So, are you excited about a new skateboarding game, Matt?
No.
I kind of figured.
I mean, it's cool. Like, I like Tony Hawk. He's a nice guy, and we had to interview him many, many times. And
that's the thing. It's like before I ever started.
I'm glad he's. I'm glad he's still in games. I'm glad a game with his name on it will still exist, and it's got to be better than that damn stand on the plastic board and wiggle around. What was that ride?
Yeah.
It's got to be better than that. I mean, I love Tony Hawk 1 and 2. Like I was kind of over it.
Remember they did the remaster?
I wasn't
like a year and a half. It was terrible.
Yeah. But Tony Hawk 1 on the PlayStation 1. I mean, I when my friend first got that, I went over and we played it. I'm not kidding, all night.
Yeah.
And my car got towed because I was parked like, and he had a feud with his neighbor, and like, if we were parked in a certain place too long, the neighbor would call, even though it wasn't illegal to park there. He'd call and have it towed, and I got towed. And I'm like, oh, my car's gone. It was like 7 in the morning. We've been up all night. And I'm like, well, the place isn't open till 9, so let's just go play more Tony Hawk. And that's how much. I mean, it was like 12 straight hours.
Yeah, the first two games were crazy, innovative, amazing games.
And you could play like one level over and over and find new stuff and finding new lines. And I mean, it was.
See, that's amazing. The part of it where it hits skateboarding that I like. Mm-hmm. It's like I like when they design the stages well enough that you can find all these different lines to hit. That's the part I'm okay with, like playing it over and over. Not to just do this one very specific trick that I need to do. It's like down this very specific rail.
Like playing a flight sim and playing like Ace Combat, where it's like I want to fly a plane and blow stuff up and do cool dogfight moves. I don't want to remember which switch is landing gear up.
Right, and I don't want to be able to not take off or not land.
Right.
It's like Flight Simulator. Like you just boot up Flight Simulator, you can't take off. It's like you're just trying to figure out. There's different audiences for that, and maybe the perfect idea for me is to find a happy ground in the middle, where it's not crazy, goofy, and unbelievable like Tony Hawk, but it's not such a rigid sim that it's like more difficult than real skateboarding.
You want the Forza of
that's a good way of putting it.
Basically,
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
It feels authentic, but it doesn't make you do the stuff that's not fun.
Yeah.
In the name of realism for the sake of realism.
Yep, I'd agree with that. So, with that tweet, I'm guessing that we're probably going to get a trailer or something here in the next week. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Maybe we'll see another half pipe at E3.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time.
Yeah. Before we move on, like you were talking about how he had to interview Tony Hawk so many times. And I remember when I first got into the industry and the first time that he was offered up as an interview, and I almost got in like a fist fight with someone to like go do the interview. And then by the time I left GT, I was like, I never want to talk to him again. Not because he's a bad guy. He is an awesome guy, and he was genuinely a really good guy. I had just literally interviewed him like 20 times.
Like you'd sit down and it's just like he's like usual, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we know what we're asking. You know what you're saying. Let's just go.
Let's just do it. Yeah. And he is a great guy, but no matter how great you are, eventually you run out of interesting stuff to say about your game.
Especially when you start not believing in the game. I mean, he knew Tony Hawk Ride was not good.
Yeah.
But
he had that crazy contract with them that he had to fulfill, and he had to stick around for all those crappy games at the end of the run there. So. And then on the flip side, I got to meet Rodney Mullen one time, and that was amazing. So, got to take the good with the bad, I guess, with everything. All right, let's move on. So Matt, I'm gonna complain about something right now that no one else in the world is probably gonna complain about, and everyone's gonna tell me I'm stupid for complaining about it. But so Microsoft, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but there used to be this sort of private club that you could be in, and you get like the early updates to Xbox One UI.
Oh, I was in it. That's why I kept getting updates every 3 days or 2 days, and finally I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to download 3.5 gigs every time I turn the Xbox on, so I pulled out of it.
Yeah, well now that program is pretty much open to everybody. Like it's the Xbox Preview program, I think is what it's called. So they're getting ready to update the Xbox UI with a big update here in the next, I think it's 2 or 3 days. It's going to happen this week. And one of the things that has been noticed that has been curiously deleted from the Xbox UI is the Snap feature, which is the ability to multitask essentially on your Xbox One. Did you ever use the feature, Matt?
Not if I didn't have to.
Really?
Because it was slow as hell. Like, it was just like this grinding. And I heard about this and asked some dev friends about it, and they're all like, "Oh, thank God!"
Yeah,
like, they are happy. And it might be a necessity, in their opinion, because basically one of the processor cores is used for the Snap,
right?
Which means you have to take it away from whatever game you're playing. And as we move forward, especially in stuff that's also compatible with Scorpio, you're not going to be able to lose that core and keep the game running.
Yeah.
So it seems like a compromise, but especially because they have pretty slow RAM. It always chugged when you did that. It was never as smooth as the video they showed at E3 would make you believe.
It worked great for me.
It was always just this
it was a little sluggish to start.
It needed like a like creak sound for when it first popped out, because it just slowed everything to a crawl, and it actually made my games freeze once in a while. It was not a good scene. I understand why they're getting rid of it. I understand why people are upset that it's going away, because of the closest thing the Xbox One OS has to the blades.
Yeah.
Which let you kind of jump in between things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I think, and I have no technical knowledge to back this up, but to me it always seemed like a poorly designed feature that the Xbox just wasn't really capable of handling properly.
I think that's Microsoft's reasoning. They're saying that they get a lot of complaints, including from people like us, that the UI is way too slow.
Yeah,
and it is. It is way too sluggish and way too slow. So I get why they're changing it. I'm going to really miss it. I used it all the time. I love being able to play a game while watching a sporting event in the Snap. Like being able to watch like football on Sundays in the Snap while I'm playing a game, like being able to multitask.
Why don't they replace it with kind of a picture-in-picture thing somehow? It's just not going to be like a full like blade sidebar thing.
Oh, really? That's
what I read. I don't know if that's true, but I heard they're trying to come up with an alternate solution that doesn't tax the system as hard. It's amazing to me because I think most people would agree that the 360 OS was better.
Yeah, yeah.
And
lightning quick.
Possibly the best console OS of the modern era. And I don't know what the footprint is on the Xbox One. I think it's like almost a gig.
Yeah.
The Xbox 360's OS footprint was 32 megabytes.
I know.
It's like, how do you go from that to this bloated monster that can't even scroll through the store smoothly? It's amazing.
See, I still boot up my Xbox 360 every once in a while just to claim my free games.
Yeah, I still
every
do
month.
That, yeah.
And so I still get a taste of like that old UI, and I'm like, this is like lightning. Like it's really crazy. But I think the bigger point that I wanted to get at with this topic is how the Xbox One, when it was first announced, they had all these pie in the sky ideas about download only, and people revolted and complained.
And the rest of us wanted to know, what happened to Velocity Girl?
Yeah.
Did she ever get to sell her T-shirts?
That's good. But it had all these features that were touted and shown off on stage and was a big part of their E3 press conferences. And it just seems like the longer the Xbox One is on the market, the more it has just moved back to center to where it's pretty much just a machine to play games.
As it should have been.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Do you think that's the lesson learned here, is that these consoles, they need to stop worrying so much about all these extra features and just create a box that plays games and is quick?
I don't think it necessarily means like get rid of all the extra features, but I do think it means make it work as a game system first, and then because that was the thing. It really feels like they took the Xbox One and handed it to a bunch of non-gamer OS designers, And I mean, you playing that thing on day one, you would think no one ever tried to play a video game on it.
Right.
You know, they were all too wrapped up in their ESPN deal and the cable pass through and all the little like set top box tricks it could do. And I'm like, I can't join a group of people while I'm in the game anymore. Like I can't do basic things that the 360 OS could do from day one. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. It was weird and awkward and annoying, and for reasons no one could figure out. It was just, and it demoed impressively if you didn't care about gaming functionality, but I do, so it was a huge problem to me. Like it drove me towards the PS4. Like basically, at a certain point, PS4 really pulled way ahead in many respects. But early on, like launch month, the month following, like there were points where I'm like, oh, I should play something. I'm going to play a PS4 game because I don't want to deal with the Xbox OS.
Well, the other thing too is that you have to dig.
And that shouldn't happen.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And the other thing too is that you have to dig deep into the menus of Xbox One to set it up so that it just works like a console.
Yeah.
So that you just turn it on and you're playing games and you're not trying to get rid of all this other BS and like signing in and like.
I mean, we did have a lot of fun on football Sundays because my friend set up, the cable pass-through and he had the Kinect and everything. We also remember that, the $100 Kinect they charge you for no good reason, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just been it's been a repeal
pullback.
without the replace.
But there was points where, because what were we talking about during the football games? In part, we're talking about the brand new video game console.
Yeah.
Every time we said Xbox, the channel thing would come out. At one point, we missed like the big play of like the last 30 seconds of a Bronco game because someone said Xbox, and then everybody tried to say no, it's Xbox stuff, and then it like backed up, and then it was a disaster.
When I got my PlayStation VR, that started happening again because I hooked up the PlayStation Eye camera again, and I had not had the foresight to make sure I disabled like the voice commands.
All that shit, yeah.
I didn't. And so my wife starts talking and all of a sudden all this stuff starts going on the TV. I'm like, oh no, this is crazy. But to me, what's really crazy is where the Xbox One started and where it is now. I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before they start getting rid of like the TV pass-through as well. Like,
does the S do that?
I don't know. Does it have that extra HDMI port?
That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know. I still have the OG Xbox One.
I remember there were people wondering if it did the pass-through.
Maybe somebody in chat knows.
Yeah,
maybe
chat
somebody got a one.
I don't remember. I don't remember if that, because I've never used an S.
Oh, so yeah, I haven't used one either. Other than at like one event, I think I used.
Yeah,
one.
I probably played a couple of demos on an S at E3, but like I've never messed with the OS on it or anything like that. I just have the day one OG with its controller that almost burned my couch down. So,
do you think this is a cautionary tale to Nintendo with the Switch?
Does it matter?
Like, it really doesn't.
Are they going to listen? No. Yeah. I mean, Microsoft's mistakes here were very different from Nintendo's mistakes, I think, because Nintendo is trying to be a jack of all trades with the Switch, but in a very different way from Xbox. Like Xbox was kind of like wrapped up in its idea of taking over the living room as the entertainment device, capital E, capital D, and Nintendo just wants to be your handheld game. Nintendo just wants you to take it with you.
Yeah.
Don't go to school by yourself. Bring us with you.
And if you remember,
it's a different. I don't think Nintendo is. I mean, they always do. I don't think Nintendo's looking at the Xbox One and being like, well, we better not do that. Like because you remember. When the Wii U was, they were setting up the account service and the online stuff, and there were numerous Western developers who were saying like, we're talking to them about this, and we were sending them, okay, so this is like, will this work like Xbox Live, or this works like PSN, or like blah, blah, blah. And at some point they got a message back that basically said, can you please stop referring to Xbox Live and PSN because none of our developers have ever used them, so we don't know what you're talking about. Right. And all the developers were like, oh my God! Like what? Like they don't know. They don't even know. They don't pay attention.
In their own little bubble.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is, if you remember back when they first showed off the Wii U, they did kind of show all this periphery stuff. Mm-hmm. They showed like the video chat and like the weird TV thing that they had, and just like Xbox One, over time all that stuff got cut off. Remember how
some of it never even happened at all.
Right. Well, yeah, some of it never did happen. And remember they had that thing where you could like hold up the gamepad and go on Google Street Maps and like be there. Yeah. And they tried to charge you to do it. Remember that?
Yep.
All that stuff ended up getting taken away and rolled back, and now it looks like actually maybe the Wii U should have been the cautionary tale for the Xbox One.
Yeah, it's possible.
It is interesting, though, and you're right, because I don't think Microsoft is ever going to give up on the convergence thing, though.
No, I don't
because
think so.
it has the mothership.
But the thing about the convergence the convergence thing will work when it is gravy on top of what we're already buying.
Yeah.
And they tried to make the Xbox One, they tried to make it the point. And that's not really what we're buying. We want games. We want, your core audience wants a game system.
Yeah.
And B, it didn't really work very well. So there's clearly more work to do. And the other problem is, like, they just didn't build on what they'd already accomplished with the 360. Like, if it was just the 360 all the functionality of a 360, and then all the convergence stuff piled on top of that, I would have forgiven a whole lot of convergence issues if the base functionality of the system still worked.
Yeah.
But it didn't, and it's still not.
And it's still
to
not
parity
where it needs
with
to be. Yeah.
where the 360 was in 2006.
You're right. Yeah,
So,
you're absolutely right. And I would argue too that Nintendo did learn the lesson from the Wii U. Just on last week's show, we were talking about how there's no Netflix and none of these kind of extraneous like services that are launching with the Switch, and so maybe Nintendo somewhere along the way here has kind of learned the lesson that, like, let's just worry about the games.
Yeah, I mean,
you think about the big
there's a flip side to
presentation,
that,
there was nothing of that sort in there. It was all about the games, their online network.
The one thing you can say about the Switch presentation over the Wii U presentation is no one came out of that not knowing it's a new system and not knowing what it looked. Because I remember when they did that Wii U presentation, I had a three-way argument with one of the producers in the field and Adam on the headset from the booth about what it was. Right. Because some people thought it was a new controller for the Wii. Yeah. I'm like, no, they showed a different, like, there was a box in the background of one of the shots in a it's too long to be a Wii. It has to be the Wii U.
Well, it learned that it needed a different form factor because it was very easy to mistake.
And maybe a different name.
Yeah, that helps too. So, I don't know. I'm going to miss the Snap feature personally. I've used it a lot.
I read about it, and of course I don't know if I would have noticed. Also because I don't have the Kinect hooked up, so I don't use the voice thing, and which means I basically use the Xbox One as much like a 360 as I possibly can, and try to forget that I'm using something else.
I'm gonna miss it. If I had taps on our TriCaster, I'd play taps right now for the Snap feature. I really loved it. Especially
I like the idea. I just didn't think it worked well enough to matter.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. The interface was awkward. Trying to figure out how to take what was snapped and put it into the big TV.
Well, that was the other problem. Was like they're basing that whole OS was an offshoot of the Metro design when they for some reason thought that everything was going to be either a touch screen or a Kinect interface, and so it was not built to be convenient for someone using a controller.
Yeah.
Or even a mouse.
You're supposed to double tap the Xbox button, and usually it would just take you home, and then you had to get back to where you had the game here and the TV. The interface for it was about as inelegant as possible, and that was something that always frustrated me. But I really got a lot of use out of it and really enjoyed it. And maybe it's something in the future that comes back when hardware is more powerful and they can pull it off a little better. I don't know, but
the Scorpio might be able to do a pretty good snap feature.
Yeah, but then people will just complain that.
But then it'll be in 4K and it'll still be just as slow because that's a curve.
You're right. So. You're absolutely right. All right, let's move on.
Just bring the blades back.
Really, just bring back the blades. Everybody knows how to use them. Yeah. You have to be an idiot not to know how they work. It's like, just hit the bumpers, and it's like, shoop, 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 shoop. Imagine how fast the blade system would work on Xbox One.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it could get
much faster.
If
you load up a 360 game backwards compatibility, you get to see it happen.
Yeah, you do.
It's like, wow, this was so good.
It's pretty hilarious. All right, let's move along. Next, we're going to talk about Resident Evil 7, Matt. Again, have you played it yet?
Nope.
You haven't played it?
No.
Why?
Well, we already talked about it, so I don't have to.
You don't, but I'm saying you don't want to.
I don't care, really.
Why?
Because I don't care about horror games. I don't care about Resident Evil much anymore, and I'll get it when it's cheaper. I'm part of the problem.
No, that's what we're getting at. There's a lot of people, apparently, who feel like you do. Mm-hmm. So they shipped 2.5 million units at launch. Shipped.
Yeah, not sold, shipped.
Not sold, shipped. That's an important thing to remember. And then, I guess it was Saturday, Capcom put out numbers for Resident Evil 7 saying there's around 1 million people playing, and of those 1 million people, 10% of them are playing on PlayStation VR. Mm-hmm. So, Matt, pretty positive reviews. Metacritic sitting like mid-8 to high 8. Do you think this is the end of the road for Resident Evil? Capcom's stock tanked today when the markets opened up. A lot of people say just because Capcom said we only shipped 2.5 million of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is. I mean, and Jim Sterling talked about this a bit this week in the Jimquisition about like there was just that point in the PS3 and 360 generation where horror games sort of went away.
Yeah,
and like
including Resident Evil.
It
went to a more action oriented.
Yeah, and
approach.
Dead Space did the same thing.
Yeah,
and what happened in Dead Space was probably worse than what happened to Resident
Way
Evil.
worse. Yeah,
but like it just vanished. It was not a thing really anymore. And now, you get something. You got like Alien Isolation or kind of things like that. And
Soma.
And Soma. The more indies. I mean, Alien Isolation isn't an indie game, but like the horror niche seems to have been filled for the most part by indie stuff and lower budget, less high risk things. And so maybe the era of Resident Evil being a major budget franchise is just not in the cards anymore.
I mean, look, I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies. Last night I sat up for an hour trying to figure out what horror movie to watch. I ended up watching Ouija 2, which actually is pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised by that movie. I think Resident Evil 7 is the best horror game, maybe as far as scares, that I've ever played. Like, it is that freaking scary. If you play it in VR, man, like, it's like I said in my game eval, there are some people that won't be able to handle it. Like, seriously, will not be able to handle the game. The kitchen demo, there's moments like that throughout the whole game. Moments where you're getting dragged along and, like, you're looking all over the place. And it is scary as crap in VR and still completely unsettling and unnerving just playing it without
Did you play it in VR at all?
I did. Oh, yeah, I went back and, like, by the time I finished the game, I had like 15 or 16 saves because I knew all along that I was going to go back. So basically what would happen is I had a save. If something happened immediately after that save that I was like, that's going to be really good in VR, the next time I saved, I started a new save so I could go back. So I went back and played pretty much all the pivotal moments and a couple of the more over-the-top boss fights, all in VR. Got sick, pretty much. Yeah, I got sick again. Like it's not like they did anything.
Faster or slower than normal or just average?
Pretty much the same. No, maybe a little bit longer I lasted, maybe around 20 minutes, something like that. But there's no changes from the demo version to the final version that made a drastic difference or anything. So it's getting great reviews. It's a return to form for the series, which was what people have asked for like 5 or 6 years now. I'm just shocked at how poorly it's selling, and it really makes me wonder if horror games, like you say, are just kind of going the way of the dodo at this point. I didn't even really enjoy Soma, to be perfectly honest. Like, I just thought it was a boring game, and I didn't think there was a lot of great scares.
I like it, but I paid like $3 for it.
Right.
So like that. But that's the thing is like,
do you think the line is blurring here, where people are like, "Wait a minute, I can play a game like Soma for $5. Why would I?"
I mean, I'm just not. Horror stuff is so subjective and so per person that like, no matter how much someone praises a horror game, I'm not going to pay $60 for it. I'm going to wait until it's at least half that. Like, I'll pick up Resident Evil like in the summer or something when there's nothing else to play, and I want to go back and do that because right now I got other things to do.
Playing that game during the summer would be odd.
Well, because it looks like
not that we ever get crazy winters here, but
right. But like, does it take place in the winter? Is it?
It doesn't. It's just like playing a game like this when it's all sunny and warm out. It's just a little odd.
That's what VR is for, because then you're all like,
you have no idea.
It's humid, and you're just like, oh my god, it's like being in this crazy cabin in the south with no AC. Like, I mean, and I'm just not really in a VR mood currently. So
yeah. So the graphic says survival horror, and some people may take that as just like, oh, it's survival horror. That's the genre.
You mean like survival of the horror?
Of genre. The horror and the survival of Capcom. Like, is this a survival horror for them because they are counting on this game to kind of get back into the black, and it looks like it's not doing.
And that's 2 major disappointments in a row following Street Fighter V.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is a huge thing for
And it's
Capcom.
like, what else do they go to now?
Right.
Hope Monster Hunter hits it big again?
Here. Like, I mean, it does great in Japan. I mean, it's never probably going to hit big here. I mean, I'm legitimately worried for Capcom at this point. That it could turn into, like, another Konami.
Could. They gotta release the greatest Mega Man game ever now.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to do that. I mean, they have Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite coming up.
Yeah, that'll probably sell well. How much is that going to benefit them?
Probably. You got to keep in mind, too, Resident Evil 7 is like 6 years since the last Resident Evil. I mean, after playing the game, I find it hard to believe they took that long to create
I feel
it.
like things must have been like torn down and built up a couple.
I
of
feel like
times.
they may have made a couple different
Yeah.
prototypes, which they've done in the past.
They've done Resident Evil 4.
Remember what the first Resident Evil 4 looked like? It
Yeah.
looked like a traditional Resident Evil game, and then ultimately they scrapped it for that. And I'm disappointed because it's a great game. Like you should go and buy Resident Evil 7 if you like scary games. If you like Resident Evil, you should go buy it. It's a complete return to form and way scarier than any Resident Evil before. Like saying it's the scariest game ever, I balk to say that, but it is hands down the scariest Resident Evil, without a doubt. I mean, you know, I talk about scariest games ever. I was talking about like Silent Hill 2 and some of those and games like that.
I don't really think of this Resident Evil games as very scary for the most part.
This game will scare you, I promise you.
Well, this one looks
And it's
definitely
not
more
all
along
jump
those lines.
scares. It's the atmosphere and the audio design and everything.
Well, that's why Silent Hill is effective.
It is.
And Resident Evil
Sometimes less is more.
Right. Well, Resident Evil always kind of lagged behind in that regard. It was more of a B-movie zombie flick. It was not particularly, 1 and 2 had their moments, but in general, there are almost more. I didn't find the switch to an action game with 4 to be all that jarring because they were already kind of there in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
5 and 6 kind of went over the hedge a little bit, but it didn't feel like an alien like evolution for the series. This could be a Silent Hill game if you spun it right.
Yeah. And I mean, trust me, the tie-in to the Resident Evil canon is very loose. Mm-hmm. And you only ever really find out about it until like the very end of the game. So it very easily could have been anything. And maybe that's the problem.
Maybe. They should have called it PT.
It definitely would have sold a lot better.
Yeah.
That's the funny part. If it was called PT, I guarantee it would have sold better than that in the first week, just because of the title. It's hilarious. But
should have called it Personal Trauma.
Yeah. Right. And let everyone else just call it
Big
PT.
P, Big T.
Right.
And then Konami be like, that's our thing. No, it's not. It doesn't exist. You can't even get it anymore.
Yeah.
He walked away from it. We took it.
So, Matt, am I reading you right when I say that you wouldn't care if Resident Evil went away?
Not really. I mean, I'd be sad in the sense that something that's been around for 20 years is no longer around.
Yeah.
In the same way I'm sad that Tony Hawk isn't around.
We haven't got a new Cubert.
Yeah. The hell's that about? But it wouldn't impact me.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I wish for games I don't care about to go away because
they have fans.
there's people that like them, and I'm not. I don't want to take away things I don't like just because I don't like them. But like, it's not gonna. If no more Resident Evils ever come out, I'm not gonna be particularly brokenhearted about it.
Yeah, but this is the thing, Sifters, that we always talk about, betting with your wallets. And, if you don't like something that's happening in the industry, don't support it with your money. Well, here's something happening in the industry that a lot of you have been asking for a long time. And it's happening, and it's here, and it's good. You got to go buy it. You got to support it, or otherwise Resident Evil will go away. There are really no sacred cows. No publisher at this point in the industry
Not now.
is willing to put that big of risk on something if it's not a sure thing. At least there's going to be people going to give it a chance.
I can see it coming back years from now, but it's like it would go dormant. It would, we'd basically be in a Metroid.
It kind of was. I mean, it's been over half a decade since the last one. After it had kind of spit him out there for a while, pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So,
and they gave it like the full try. I mean, they came out pretty close to the movie, which that I don't really see how they could have had mind share be much higher. Yeah, but it just didn't.
I haven't seen any marketing for it hardly at all. Have you?
I saw a couple commercials on like expanded cable, but like no I haven't seen billboard. I haven't seen a Last Guardian level.
Think about that.
Push.
We have not seen a billboard around LA for Resident Evil 7. That's crazy. Every game is advertised here on billboards. Every one of them. Like even if they have a moderate budget, like you see billboards all over the city. You've seen nothing for Resident Evil 7. So
you'd think at least you would have maybe seen like a joint billboard of the Resident Evil movie and 7. It's like these two things are both coming out close to each other. Like go have your Resident Evil Day. Kind of thing.
Maybe they should have done some kind of crazy cross promotion where you go and see the movie, you get a discount on the game, or you buy the game, you get a free movie ticket.
The other question is like, they did put out enough chances to play this thing demo-wise.
The demo's been out there. Yeah.
So maybe people just didn't like it.
That could be. And I would agree that demo is not good. Mm-hmm. I mean, the kitchen's great, but the other demo that they put out, where you walk around and you're trying to get the finger, like, that's not a good way to demo the game.
No, and you certainly don't want to tell someone about that.
No, I got the finger.
Walk around a kitchen to get the finger. What? Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. That demo was not. It was not good. It was not representative of what the final game is really at all. It.
I'd like to see them bring back Dino Crisis, personally.
I mean, honestly, the demo reminded me of PT, which I also wasn't a big fan of. I still don't understand what the big deal was about that. But the real game is really nothing like that demo or anything like PT. It is.
If you made a first-person game, a game like this in VR for Dino Crisis, I would buy that.
Interesting.
I'm not saying
So you're saying dinosaurs greater than zombies?
Yes.
Although there aren't even really zombies in this, but
I would rather see VR dino. I mean, that's why.
Are there?
That's why I bought that stupid Robinson game.
I don't want to spoil anything for anybody.
That's why I bought that stupid Robinson game. See dinosaurs in VR. There's a lot of dinosaurs in VR, but like I like Dino Crisis, especially like Dino Crisis 2, which a lot of people think is some kind of sacrilege because it's really more of an action game.
It is. Yeah.
As far as like the pre-rendered perspective games, that was about as action as they got. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it fit the faster, Raptor style things better, and I played it a lot. And I missed Dino. And then Dino Crisis 3 came out. And it was in space and it was in.
They killed that franchise.
Oh, that was.
They just stabbed it right through the heart.
Oh, that was just. I mean, I rarely do you see a series get more of a running start before just being driven right into a wall. It's like that was amazing.
They made sure it got up enough speed so that when it hit the wall, it would die.
Yeah. Just continuing that whole trend. Really, Resident Evil might be the only horror series that escaped the whole, like, once it hits 3, just stop playing them thing. Because there's a certain or just stop making them, which also is the thing that happens.
Yeah.
Because after Silent Hill 3, Dino Crisis 3 ended, Dead Space 3, that was the end of that.
Yeah. Resident Evil got better after 3.
Resident Evil got better after 3, yeah. That's like they bucked the trend.
And the one thing I will say, too, about Resident Evil 7 before we move on is that it does pretty much incorporate elements of every Resident Evil ever made. Every single one of the mainline games, there's at least one element from those games that you see, obviously, in Resident Evil 7. So people asking if they go back, like, they took it literally. Like, there's the whole Nemesis kind of thing going on through big parts of the game. And obviously, it still owes a lot to Resident Evil 4. And, yeah. And it has the puzzles and stuff from the first 2.
Do I get to punch a boulder?
No punching boulders.
Well, then what the hell?
That's where they draw the line.
What else do you take from Resident Evil 6?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the first, mission, Leon's mission, is what you take away from Resident Evil 6 because it was the only part of the game that it was even vaguely like the old games, and it was the one part of the game that most people praised. So I'm guessing that's probably it. But go buy it, people. You got to support it if you want it to stick around and you want it to come back. If you don't, then... Yeah. I hate you.
I mean...
I don't want it to go away.
The only reason I would buy it would be to support the idea of VR stuff, and...
Yeah.
I feel like that may be a lost cause at this point.
Look, it's probably the best VR game ever made. I'm not kidding. That's still not enough.
Not really, no.
You should give it a whirl. I think it may change your mind if you actually try it.
Not for $60.
Yeah. Hopefully other people don't feel that way. Capcom needs that extra $10 to $20 for this game, I think. But we'll see. But
I was glad when you got the early copy and played it because I'm just like, oh, if we talk about this, that means I don't have to buy one. I don't have to play it. And so I didn't.
Yeah. Well,
I got other stuff to play.
I'll be interested, though, if you do eventually play it and you come, just make sure you let me know. Because I do want to hear your perspective, and I'm sure the Sifters do as well, to see what you think of it, because obviously we're two different people with different tastes. So,
well, we'll see. I'll keep an eye on Cheap Ass Gamer, and we'll get it for a good price.
There we go. All right, let's move along. Today, embargo broke for a rash of Horizon Zero Dawn footage and previews. Sony put out a 20-minute chunk of gameplay, the biggest look at the game yet. And this, for the first time, and we're seeing it right now, you really get to see the full gameplay loop of Horizon Zero Dawn. Matt, what struck you most about this?
Well, I mean, it's been called an action RPG the whole time, but like the action RPG structure really goes far beyond what they've been showing before now.
This is the first time it's ever really looked. This is the first time we ever saw the RPG in the action RPG, I would argue.
Yeah. It looks sizable.
Crafting is huge. Crafting is a huge, and resource gathering is a huge part of this. Honestly, it looks to me like they followed the temple or the template of the Tomb Raider reboots.
Yeah,
Particularly Rise of the Tomb Raider, where it really got really deep into crafting and
there's a lot of Tomb Raider in this. There's a lot of Far Cry, I think.
Yeah, because the hunting is huge in this.
Yeah.
But that was big in Tomb Raider as well.
Somewhat. I think this looks much more involved than Tomb Raider ever got. There's a lot of luring, and then you can override this guy and take him as a horse mount, and it's like it looks like there's a lot of interaction with the world beyond what like we expected from just sort of being an open world Far Cry kind of clone, which it is not clearly. There's a lot of dialogue. There's dialogue, Mass Effect style dialogue trees, which I don't remember seeing before. Although I've been kind of avoiding a lot of media on this one because I feel like I'm sold.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to see any. Like you got me. I'm in. Like I don't need to see any more. The world is very expansive. You see her go through a couple different environments in this 20-minute thing. Clearly, as we're about to see up here, some of the lip syncing is not done because they keep cutting away when other characters talk because it looks like they're not done quite finishing the facial animations.
I don't even know if it's that bad. I think that's just maybe the way the game is going to be.
That would be unfortunate.
Because one thing I would argue is that the facial expressions when they're talking are not particularly good.
No, they're not particularly good. But hers are markedly... Because like every time the other guy talks, they cut to the developers staring at nothing.
Yeah.
And the only reason you would do that is something is not finished about what the footage would be otherwise.
Yeah, look how blatant this is.
Because that's the only time they cut back to them is when NPCs are talking.
And they're doing nothing and saying nothing. Yeah. They're just sitting there. They're not adding commentary or anything. It's just cut to the guys.
And now they come to this, and he's more or less speaking normal. It's close to finished, but you can still see he's not quite on the level of what's her name, Aloy.
Yeah.
And and they do it with another guy later in the demo where they cut back to them while he's talking. And I'm just like, okay, something's wrong.
They're hiding something here. Yeah. Dialogue trees though are extensive in this.
Oh, yeah.
I was blown away by this footage.
It looks like there's
there's 8 options to reply to somebody.
Oh, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of lore to uncover about the world, which is good. I mean, it's kind of like the most intriguing part of the game. Is this world they're in, and sort of
why
this guy belongs to some sort of offshoot tribe that like has like this other matriarch who ordered him to stay here, so you have to go find her because he wants to go find her, but he can't disobey the order, so they don't take him up on that other quest in this demo, but like you can go do that before you move on. I'm getting like a Mass Effect vibe out of it, or Dragon Age vibe out of it, and I dig that.
Yeah. Yeah, the faces technically look great.
Yeah.
I mean, the detail and everything, but for whatever reason, their facial animation just isn't quite
there yet. There. I mean, obviously we know, if you've got something that's polished up enough to be a demo, you're going to share with people. This build is probably a couple months old.
Yeah.
It's an offshoot of a build from a couple months ago, so that stuff just might not be ready yet, and I'm sure they are ready now, or getting there, because they got a month to get this thing out.
That's really good news. We're going to be playing this in a month.
And 28 days.
Yeah, it's great. So, I'm really excited.
Unless some certain locations get something early.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But, I mean, the main reaction I have to this demo is like, man, I cannot wait to dig into this.
Yeah. So would you say it's made you more excited for the game or less?
I mean, again, it's been my most wanted game since last August, so I don't know if you can really get me more interested in that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it certainly encourages me to not doubt my excitement for it, which is the opposite of my last most anticipated game, which was No Man's Sky, whereas like the demos coming up close to that were sort of making me go, what's going on? Even up to the release week of that, we were sort of like, I don't know what's going to happen. This one, I feel like I know what I'm getting into, and it's going to be solid unless like it just feels terrible to control, which I feel like that's probably not going to happen.
You can see lots of drawing in this footage, though.
Oh yeah,
trees popping up on the horizon. I'll concur with you though. I'm way more excited after watching this. To me, this game has far more depth to it than I expected. The crafting and everything, and I never dreamed it was going to be as extensive as it is. I always thought that this was going to stray way more onto the action side of the action RPG spectrum, and it looks like it's not. I mean, it looks just like Fallout to me.
Somebody's facial animation wasn't done again.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like Fallout to me with maybe more immediate combat than what you're getting from Fallout. I don't know if it's necessarily got the dice rolling underneath the hood. It doesn't sort of appear to be that way.
I don't know about that, but it definitely seems to have better writing than 4 did.
Yeah.
I'm already more interested in this than I was in
the world and
4.
everything. Well, anytime you're experiencing a universe for the first time, it's going to...
Yeah, I'd never been to Boston and Fallout before. I just didn't care.
Yeah, but it's still the same universe. It's that same kind of, I don't know how to explain it, tone, and it's like you've seen the other cities run down post-nuclear. Now you're seeing Boston run down post-nuclear. It's fresh. It looks solid. It looks great. It is funny, though, how when I first saw this game, how it was mind-blowing as far as the visuals are concerned, and now... It's kind of come back to the pack a little bit. Or I wouldn't say that. I would say the pack maybe caught up with it a little bit since it was first announced.
It still looks good.
It's just, of course.
There's that natural curve of advancement. I think this, the same thing's going to happen actually with, not to beat that dead horse, but Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at that and it's like, oh my God, how can a game look that good and run on modern? Well, because it's not going to run on modern PC. It's going to run on your next PC.
And then 5 years later,
it comes out in 2020. And everything's going to look as good or better by then. So that's the thing is like you're just seeing stuff early.
Yeah.
And although again. This is also a good game, a good argument for PS Pro, because it does definitely look better on the Pro.
Yeah. I also like, too, how you were talking earlier about how there's kind of these other rival factions and tribes, and you have to almost have, like, some form of diplomacy with those other tribes to help you accomplish your goals, and sometimes you're going to lend a hand to them to help them accomplish theirs. Like, I wonder if there's some kind of an end game there where everyone kind of comes together. I don't know. A lot of possibilities have been kind of opened up with this demo on a number of levels. The narrative, the gameplay, the RPG elements, the crafting. I'm really excited, man. I don't know if this will be the last time we talk about Horizon on the show before it comes out, but...
Probably not. I'm sure there'll be one more kind of thing.
I think this might be it. I think this might be the big preview before the release. I mean, it's 4 weeks away,
Well, maybe there'll be like unboxings or something. That's not something we talk about normally.
Right. But I'm saying as far as like new information, here's a big chunk of gameplay. This is probably it before we finally get the real deal. So.
I do have the ridiculous statue version ordered,
you do?
Which I don't usually do, but I do like her character design. So hopefully it's a good statue and not a Witcher 3 statue.
And hopefully when it shows up, it isn't all beat up and the paint isn't all chipped off.
Yeah. No man.
Which seems to be happening not just with that game lately. Like like the Resident Evil 7 houses. They had to recall those because they were all broken.
Although the Resident Evil houses weren't delayed by 6 months and continually emailed me to talk about how the delay was to make them perfect, and then they showed up with all the paint chipping off and a coat of paint, one coat of paint that I could see the metal through. I was not happy with my No Man's Sky Collector's Edition, in case people are gathering this.
Nobody has been. Everyone's been complaining about it.
It was bad, and I was like, I emailed them. I was like, can I exchange this for one that like looks better? And they're like, we'll take it back. We'll take your feedback into thing for next time. I'm like, oh, there ain't gonna be a next time.
So, you want it.
I think I learned my lesson about ordering physical things that are not vinyl albums from I Am 8-Bit on this one.
I Am 8-Bit did that?
Yeah, the I Am 8-Bit handled the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And it was...
That's disappointing. Those guys are usually top-notch.
It wasn't a bad model, but it wasn't $175 worth of model.
Wow.
So
I didn't realize they were that much.
It was $150 plus tax and shipping. But it was $175, and I got this ship that like all the yellow was chipping off because they used a different kind of enamel paint on it. That it was like, look, man, I collect enough Transformers and Gundam stuff that I know
they should know
that was the wrong
paint
to use for that. There's other people that have had wings broken off. There's people who've had fingerprints in the paint, and it's just like,
a lot of horror stories.
I know they're hand painted, but like, come on, like wait, don't grab it before it's dry. That's basic. So yeah, I'm hoping that Horizon Zero Dawn manages to give me a better quality. And also we had the issue with the Witcher 3 statue where Geralt's face looked like it was melting like a candle or something because hand painted. Yeah. And that was another instance where like, we'll take the whole thing back if you want, but otherwise go fuck yourself. And I'm like, all right, sure, no more statues. So this is my last shot. If this one doesn't work out, I'm not buying any more statues.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Well, it's like Zelda. I didn't order the statue.
Yeah,
I ordered the
Master Sword one.
I ordered the special edition but the $99 one that doesn't come with the statue thing.
Gotcha.
Because like A, I don't particularly love statues, and B, every time I've taken a shot at one of these statues, it's turned out terrible. So
And the chances of that one getting broken in particular, because it's like this base with a sword that sticks up like that, it's so easy to just snap that sword. Like, not worth rolling the dice on that one.
So, and I mean, I don't understand the statue thing as a kind of an overall concept for them. I mean, it's like, who ordered the Ghost Recon one with the bearded dude?
I know.
Like, who wants that? Like, at least like the you know, like I got the Last Guardian one I got. That was nice.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That was a good one. Or you know, at least Alloy is like the main character, and she looks cool.
Yeah.
Whereas like I really want kind of a slightly overweight bearded man with like operator gear on. Like, what is that?
I don't know who's gonna buy that. It was so dumb. And believe me, I'm rooting for Ghost Recon Wildlife.
I feel like a lot of people that are gonna get that are like look a lot like that statue. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's like that's me. I got a me.
That could be why. Yeah.
I might have bought it if I had a longer beard, maybe.
Yeah. All right, let's move along. Next, we're going to talk about Scorpio. Eurogamer. Once again, Eurogamer's turning into like the Leakmeisters. They obviously got all that information on the Switch early, and now it somehow got leaks of Scorpio's real specs. Matt, were you impressed by those specs for Scorpio?
Well, I mean, it's pretty good.
I think they're real good.
Makes me wonder what the price is going to be.
I know.
Makes me also glad I don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a pricey system.
It is going to be, I think.
But it is the power level that people, you know, the real core enthusiasts seem to be demanding, so maybe it's good.
Yeah.
You know, I think it feels like, and maybe that was unrealistic for the price they ended up charging for it, but it feels like Scorpio is what people were thinking or maybe hoping the PS4 Pro was going to be.
Right.
And it's going to, you know, it's going to be probably worth it if you're into those games, those exclusives, and you're not a PC owner. I can't think of a better way to play something like Forza 7, which is probably what you're going to be playing on this thing.
Well, the developer of Ori and the Blind Forest came out and said that he thinks it's the next generation. That it's not like this incremental thing like you got with the PS4 Pro, that it is like the next generation.
Like the leap
of
is
Xbox
big enough
hardware.
to call it.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll be able to run native 4K with those specs?
Well, they were saying it's supposed to be able to do it, but then that's also what the PS4 Pro is supposed to be able to do, and it doesn't seem to do that.
Did they ever say native 4K, though?
I don't know if they said native 4K, but they kept talking about 4K, and now we're getting checkerboard 2180 or 2160 on stuff like Horizon, and it's like, well...
Right.
I mean, that's fine. I don't even have a 4K TV set, so no skin off mine. It's going to be downsampled at best, but we'll see. I don't know. The specs maybe it depends on the game, but maybe Halo 6 won't run at full 4K, but I bet like Ori and the Blind Forest 2 will.
Yeah, I was really impressed with those specs, to be honest with you. I know that there was kind of like some loose ones floating out there, but these specs ended up being kind of the higher end of the rumors that were floating around.
How much do you think that's going to cost if those are correct? We've got another $500 system here?
Well, here's the thing. So Pactor answers a question about that in an upcoming episode, so I've kind of cheated a little bit. And I also don't want to spoil Pac's answer for that question. So I don't know if I want to really guess. The one thing I will say is I think for it to be competitive, Microsoft is going to have to take a loss on the hardware. I don't see any other way that even with, assuming that it's buying in huge bulk and it's getting parts at a cheaper price, I still think that you're going to need to take a loss on the hardware to make it.
Usually, people are willing. Companies are willing to do that because of the razor blade, philosophy. The one company that doesn't do that is Nintendo, which is why we're paying $300 for a Switch.
Right. But you know what? If it really is a leap, I think people will pay it.
They're going to have games to entice you into it, though.
That's the rub. And, now Microsoft is going to get, if it really is that big of a jump, Microsoft is going to get into this weird, almost Nintendo-ish place where it's almost creating software for two platforms. And we know how that's worked out for Nintendo.
Yep. Well, then who knows where, when Sony enters the fray with the next PlayStation leap.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've got three different companies with, the borders on the generations become very blurry at that point.
They're already blurry, I think.
Oh, yeah. But, at that point, you're like, well, who's making what for this, and what do you do? Because it used to be like, everything comes out at once. Everything's pretty much parity with itself. Some things are better, they're basic things, and others you have to pick which one you think is the best or which one has the exclusive games you want. And now it's become like, well, what year do you want to buy in? It's almost like buying a car now. So it's like, you're never going to get the best one. You just have to pick the one you need right now, almost.
I actually have a question for you, Matt. I personally, I was going to buy a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I ended up not. I ended up backing out and not getting it. I still have my base PS4. Do you regret buying a PlayStation 4 Pro at all?
No.
If you didn't have oodles of disposable income, do you think you would regret it?
I don't think I could answer that question until after Horizon.
Okay.
It depends how well it runs Horizon. It did run Final Fantasy better.
Yeah.
It did run, well, sort of, until they, kind of. It definitely ran Last Guardian better. And it makes the VR games, like, clear. You know, it's not crystal clear, but it makes it clearer in a way that makes me not notice they're not very clear, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense,
It's, you know, like putting Robinson in after I upgraded PS4, you know, playing it on normal PS4, it's like, oh, yeah, I see. Okay, what does that say? Okay, what? And then, like, you look in the same room with, like, the posters at the beginning on PS4 Pro. It's like you can read everything on the walls.
Right.
And I'm like, it's a minor thing. It's not a gameplay thing.
It's not minor when you're talking about VR, though.
You know, it
VR,
helps.
every little bit helps, like, big time.
So yeah, I mean, as someone who was already dumb enough to buy a PSVR, I don't really regret doing that because
you could probably sell it on eBay now for like double what you paid for it. So
PSVR,
yeah.
Oh.
People can't find them anywhere. They're going for crazy prices on. If you have a boxed one, they're going for like big bucks.
I still have the box. I don't know. I mean, I like them. I just haven't used it recently.
Yeah.
I just not until Star Trek comes out, man. Like, you know,
I do wonder how much I'm going to use that thing now that I've finished Resident Evil 7, though.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, basically, if I'd, you know, factor in the trade-in for the original PlayStation 4, and it really wasn't that much of a hit.
Yeah.
And it is, you know, it is faster. Most stuff does seem to work better. I'll probably never go back to World of Final Fantasy again because I waited for them to fix that because they screwed up the depth of field on the PS4 Pro. Been a lot of screwed up PS4 Pro upgrade patches that then had to go back and be fixed. That was kind of disappointing, but
it seems like the consensus on the PlayStation 4 Pro is that it's not worth it. Like the word on the street from people who bought it or people who are thinking about buying it, it seems like a lot of people kind of rejected it.
Yeah, I mean, I would still say if you don't have a PS4 at all, that's the one to get.
Yeah.
Because it's only $100 more, and you're going to get better performance out of it, and it's going to become more and more supported as time goes on. Yeah, it's not an essential upgrade if you already have a PS4.
I wonder what the market's going to be for Scorpio.
I don't know. I think it depends entirely on what they're releasing with it to play.
There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be buying.
Clearly, we don't know anything about the second half of this year for the most part.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to buy a Nintendo Switch this year. Obviously, the PlayStation 4 Pro just launched, and they have the Slim. And they're going to, obviously, Sony's just going to keep moving consoles. And you start looking at the Scorpio at the end of the year, which is probably going to be on the higher end of the price-wise, and you're starting to wonder now, what's the software? Where's the software?
Because we know nothing about Microsoft.
Well, they announced today that randomly, Phil Spencer says that Phantom Dust is coming in the next 2 months.
Right. Which, you know,
what?
Not a word about, not a frame of footage.
Nessie's going to tell us that Scalebound is coming out like next week or something. Like,
because we thought Phantom Dust was at the very least on hold.
Yeah, well, they did. They said it was.
They shut the developer down. Yeah. So who's making
what
it?
What is going on over there?
I mean, I like Phantom Dust on the original Xbox quite a bit. I'm happy to see it come back. But like, what? And you just sort of drop that?
And that's also not a hardware mover, by the way.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Phantom Dust is not a hardware mover.
I mean, it's a hardware mover in the sense that it might get me to pick up the controller again.
Right.
But, like, it's not going to sell anybody a
system.
system.
It from its encrusted dust that it's been piling up around it all this time.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
But maybe there's 3 people in the world who will buy an Xbox One to play Phantom Dust.
Yeah.
And they should probably wait for Scorpio.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just feel like the Scorpio is coming in this weird place, like...
Oh, it really depends what they're launching it with.
The C3 is going to be huge.
Who knows what they got? Clearly Forza 7 is in there.
Yep.
Presumably Crackdown 3.
Yeah.
They could theoretically...
Crackdown 3, Matt, has to come out this year.
Yeah. They could theoretically surprise us with something Halo, but I think Halo Wars 2 was your Halo for the year.
Yeah. Theoretically, I don't think that's even possible.
No. Maybe like a big Halo Wars 2 expansion thing, like a DLC thing.
Yeah.
That, better on Scorpio or something.
Right.
I know there's a lot of people thinking that they were going to do an Oculus tie-in, but
I think they just said last week that that's not the case.
I feel like it's time to back away from them slowly until the ZeniMax lawsuit is
Yeah,
done.
exactly. That's probably a good idea. Speaking of which, I haven't heard the verdict on that yet.
I don't think it's gotten a verdict yet.
How long is the jury going to deliberate? It's been like a week.
Can go a long time.
I guess so. What the hell? I didn't even think to check up on that.
I don't know. My mom had a friend who was on a murder jury they were in deliberation for like a month.
Oh my gosh. I thought by then they just call it a hung jury or mistrial or whatever.
Yeah, it depends on why it's taking so long.
Interesting. But I think it's, speaking of interesting, I think Scorpio is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be like a case study that people look at for a long time after this on whether incremental hardware upgrades are the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's, between the Switch and the Scorpio, it's, and Pro, but this year is going to be the litmus test for that. And it's like, who was right? Was Nintendo right to put out a totally different thing? Was Sony right to put out a small step, a step forward, but not a giant leap? Or is Microsoft correct to basically jump to the next generation
before everyone else
without admitting it?
Yeah,
and that's when it really comes in.
That is a weird part, isn't it?
Well, I guess we don't really know if they're admitting it or not until we see what they call it.
Right.
I mean, Scorpio is just a code name. So what? If they call it the Xbox 2, Xbox Next, I don't know.
U for Ultra HD, I don't even know.
What if they just call it Windows 11?
Or what if they just call it Xbox 4K?
It is the fourth Xbox.
Right.
That could be it.
It could be. Probably not.
Probably not.
It's a good guess, though.
But you'd have to be real confident of your ability to do stuff in 4K. I mean, similar to, back when Sony was trying to sell the PS3 as the HD era.
Yeah.
Next gen begins when we say it does.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Man, those guys
really
thought they were the greatest
really
thing in the world. They thought everybody was going to beat the path to the door for the cell processor.
Nope. Didn't work out that way. But, E3's coming up again really quickly, which just blows my mind that another E3 is starting to knock on the door already, and I think we'll probably know a lot more then. But and I think we might also get information on Scorpio leading up to E3. It seems like Microsoft is... Cat's kind of out of the bag now that the specs are out there.
Well, now that... hell, look, if there can be as many leaks as there were on the Switch... which a lot of those leaks turned out to be false.
They did, yeah.
But we got a couple of real things here and there.
Yeah.
And Microsoft, as I expect, does not have the security that Nintendo does. So.
Look, we knew what the Switch was before it was announced. That's a big deal, especially after Nintendo had lied. When people asked them if it was a hybrid, and they're like, no, and it was.
Yeah.
And still, these publications were brave enough to trust their sources. They're saying, oh, yes, it is. It's exactly what you guys think it is. The base functionality of the system we did know before it came
for
out.
A long time.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of how they were going to do it, and nobody called that one, really.
No.
Except that one 4chan guy.
Yeah, exactly. Very oddly, 4chan was right for once. So let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about something that really struck me over the last week. It's the Lunar New Year, the Chinese New Year. And last week I was doing some curating, and I was just shocked at how many games had special events for Chinese New Year.
It's almost like China's a big market or something.
It's really not that big of a market, though, for a lot of games, because
they just started... games doing those events, though.
Right. Well, is it?
Yeah, Overwatch is trying to sell you loot crates. It's
Heroes of the Storm? Is that big in China?
Big enough.
It's a PC game.
It's a PC MOBA. Sure.
Yeah, I guess it would be. But anyway, so that sparked my interest in...
China loves Blizzard.
Everybody loves Blizzard.
Yeah, but Blizzard made a headway in China before just about anybody.
Yeah. And the Lunar stuff just got me going. And I started thinking about it, and I was shocked at how many special events are happening inside games now. Whether it's for the Lunar New Year, or the Western New Year, or Christmas, or Halloween this past year. There was like 20 different games that did Halloween events. Matt, why do you think this is a pretty recent phenomenon in games?
Yeah, but it comes alongside the rise of gaming as games as a platform. It's a reason to log in and see what's different and see what's new and maybe play a little bit and maybe spend some money on something that you haven't seen yet.
But here's the thing. Most of
think
these
it works
are free.
on me.
They're free.
Right, but like they want you to spend money on whatever they sell for real money in the store, you know? It's like, I mean, Marvel Heroes...
So you're saying they're using it as a Trojan horse to get people to re-engage with the game and then just go peruse the store?
More or less, yeah. That's
Because
the
most
idea.
of the items and stuff you get with these, you don't have to pay for them.
Right, but the idea is you'll get involved again. And then you'll spend money. And it's like Marvel Heroes does that. It does, they don't do holiday events, but I think they did a Halloween thing, but they do and Christmas stuff and anniversary stuff. And I don't do that. I log in, you get your free thing, you poke around. Oh, they got this here. No, they got that's a cool new costume. Maybe I'll get that. And that's what Overwatch does. Overwatch doesn't really need to get more people to log in.
25 million people they just hit.
But that's the idea. Is you have this free game you play. You haven't really paid attention to it for a long time because you're not paying a subscription fee. So who cares? That's one of the only reasons I've logged into Star Wars: The Old Republic last few months. Is they did special things. Log in and get your things, and that's kind of how it works.
MMORPGs, I would say, is one genre that's kind of done this for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, I think World of Warcraft has probably done it for almost a decade.
EverQuest did it forever,
Yeah.
and even Ultima Online had special events like that. Not massively promoted outside the game, but there's always been some kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is going to happen and everything's going to change. And hell, they even did it when they shut games down. I remember the end of City Heroes was like they had aliens invade and kill everybody.
Right.
And I think at some point they realized that, hey, that's a cool thing to do to get people to re-engage with what are really some of the most repetitive games in the medium.
Right.
And feel like something new and interesting is happening. So
cosmetics in MMORPGs it's changing now. But that used to be the genre where it was bigger than any other genre.
Right.
And over time, that whole element is starting to creep over. I think Team Fortress 2 was probably one of the first games that kind of bridged that gap and start to make people think. People who enjoyed other genres made them start to think about, hey, maybe this is something I might be interested in. But I'm surprised to hear you say that this Trojan horse works on you. Because, I look at, we're looking at the trailers for a bunch of this stuff right now.
Well, I don't generally actually buy much when I do, but
it does get you to log back in.
It will get me to log back in, yeah.
Yeah, see, that does it for me.
To get the free pet or the hat or whatever, sometimes it depends on the game.
That doesn't work on me. When they did the festival thing in Final Fantasy 15, I didn't boot up Final Fantasy 15 and go check it out.
No, why would I do that?
But, I mean, it's the same thing, though. It was like a special event.
So usually it's a game I like, is kind of the thing,
Yeah.
It's I'll be like, oh, there's a thing if you log into Marvel Heroes today. Marvel Heroes will probably want to go back to. Marvel Heroes and Old Republic are the two I go back to the most. Log into to Marvel Heroes and you get a free whatever today. I'm like, all right, I'll do that. And I log in, yeah, cool. And I look at okay, that's a cool character. Yeah, cool. I remember that. All right, maybe I'll go play some of this. And a couple times I've ended up playing that game for a week after that.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't spend any money on them, but I did play it.
Yeah.
Which is something It worked to some degree, and sometimes it's almost just like I just need that little nudge to remind me, oh yeah, I like doing that. Maybe I'll go do that.
I mean, here's the thing: obviously it works, or they wouldn't be doing it. But for me, I'm just trying to figure out why it doesn't work on me. I've never played a special event in a video game in my whole life.
Wow.
Did they ever do them in Phantasy Star Online?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe that was the only time I ever did.
They like Halloween, Rappies coming out of pumpkins. And stuff like that.
I think that was the only time I ever did one.
It was usually just they decorated the lobby.
Yeah.
And there was a special dungeon you could go through to get you get candy cane swords and stuff.
And I didn't log in just to do it. It just so happened that I played it when I went in there. Yeah, it wasn't they didn't message stuff back then anywhere near the level they do now.
You get a pop-up when you log in.
Yeah.
It's oh, we're going to do this. But
they didn't put out a trailer for Halloween in Phantasy Star Online like they do with this stuff. It's pretty crazy, the shift. And you're right, I think it is the games as a platform thing. It's that whole different business model that they're following. And this is kind of their way to market it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the video game, the online video game equivalent of putting tying balloons up outside the used car lot or something like that. It's just a bunch of colory crap up and get
or those
people's attention.
snake dudes.
I mean, hell, those have been in some of these events.
Yeah.
I've seen you could get one of those as a pet in a couple of those things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's hilarious.
A little nod to the idea.
Right.
I got it. But
or the dude standing out with the spit in the signs outside the mobile phone place.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing.
Those guys are great.
I've
never ever gone to see any of the things they're pointing at, but
nope.
I like watching them at a
So it only works for you in video games. It doesn't work in the real world.
Well, look, I don't have to find somewhere to park to log into Marvel Heroes, so unless something really weird's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also maybe it would work in like a more a less urban environment for me. But like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stop on Wilshire Boulevard and find a parking meter like to find out what this guy's spinning the cash for gold.
That must be one damn good cell phone you got in there.
I got to go see what they got in there. I got some gold with me right now. Like, what is that? Yeah. I don't know what's happening there.
What do you think?
Or actually, now it's going to start to be tax season, so there's going to be people doing that with the tax.
Right.
Guys dressed as. I'm not kidding. If you're not from America, guys dressed as the Statue of Liberty, with a giant arrow sign that says "Go get your taxes done at this place," spinning it and juggling and doing all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Matt, do you think they'll ever start charging for these special event DLC things?
No.
You don't think anyone will get so greedy that eventually they'll do it?
If they do, they're going to get hosed.
Yeah.
Like the whole point is,
I don't think Blizzard will ever do it. Blizzard's way too smart for that.
It's a fun thing to do. Oh, I mean, Blizzard doesn't need to because they do this. Man, my girlfriend and all her friends for Overwatch, like she went running through the apartment going, the event's up. Like people were waiting, with at the computer, waiting for it to go live, because they get to see all the new skins and all the new stuff. Yeah. And then they start immediately buying loot boxes with either real money or the stuff they've saved. I mean, it's.
Well, I'm the guy who's been playing League of Legends for 5 years. I'm the guy who's been playing League of Legends for 5 years and doesn't have a single skin. So
yeah, I don't think you're the target market on this one.
That's why I wanted to discuss a little bit, because I'm not. I don't get it and I don't understand it. And so I thought maybe it might be an interesting
it's like the Marvel thing is my closest equivalent. And it also comes from mobile games. Like, this was a thing on mobile games for a long time.
Yeah.
You'd always see various events. Temple Run has constant changeovers. A lot of the Angry Birds games do that, where the icon will change to be frosted over for Christmas, so there'll be flowers on it in the spring, and they'll do stuff like that and just sort of kind of try to keep it fresh and make you feel like you're getting a little bit of new content.
One thing that Blizzard does that's really smart but also infuriates me is, with Overwatch, it'll bring a new mode into the game. Mm-hmm. And then it takes it away.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaining about that.
I hate that, but it's smart because it makes sure that people come to the event because they're like, well, when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
But when it's something simple like capture the flag.
It's just sort of mean.
Yeah, it's why would you take it away?
If you fall in love with that mode, then you're
it's there. You've proven it works on your servers and lag isn't a problem. Just leave it. It's silly, but I get why they do it. It builds incentive for players to show up and check out the event. But over time, does it diminish that? Because they're like, well, they're just going to take it away
again, yeah.
Why would I get good at it? Why would I care if it's going to be gone in a week? Or
I don't know. It's kind of a theory I've heard floated is, and I don't know if I totally buy into it, but it's basically it's well, why don't we just have Christmas all year?
That would be awesome.
And I'm like, that's cool.
The reason we don't have Christmas all year is because we can't afford it.
Right. But it's that's the idea.
But if we could, we would.
Right, but that's the idea. Is well, if you got to play Capture the Flag every day, it wouldn't be special anymore.
You mean every other frickin' shooter on the market?
Exactly. Because they're not special, are they? You're thinking about Capture the Flag in Overwatch.
It is special to be able to play whatever mode, whatever you want. That's great.
Not as special as you have to wait till April.
That's bullshit.
For the tax day event, I don't know what they'll do in April.
You're probably right. We'll have Uncle Sam skins for everybody. I mean, it's probably going to happen.
Nah.
They'll wait for July 4th for that.
I don't think they'll do anything in that regard, because I think you'd be alienating the worldwide player base too
That's
much.
A good point. Well, I mean, this was Chinese New Year.
Yeah, but everybody kind of likes that stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll see what world opinion is on Uncle Sam come July at this rate. So I don't know if we'll see that happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder. I mean, literally, I'm not exaggerating. I think there were 13 Lunar New Year events for various games. I did a search on Sifted to try to grab footage for the show, and it was just a list this long.
Keep that number in mind, and then when the big blockbuster movies start coming out this summer, keep track of how many of them have scenes that take place in China.
Yeah.
It's a big market. You have to market to it, and you have to show that you're thinking about them.
Yeah, you're right.
And using the Lunar New Year is a really good way to do it. And it's also a good way to get everybody excited about it, because all that stuff looks really awesome, and it lets you use fireworks and the cool lanterns and the dragons and stuff. I mean, it's neat. Like,
2 months from now, China may want to kill us. I don't know. The way things are going right now.
but they'll let Blizzard go.
Yeah, they'll be cool with Blizzard.
They'll be cool.
Maybe we're good that we live so close to Blizzard.
Everybody go to Irvine.
I feel nice and safe, but we're only an hour away from Blizzard.
But I think and like the theming is really neat, and like a lot of the costumes are cool.
They do a good job with it.
It's great.
But not everyone's Blizzard. Not everyone does. As good a job with it.
There's going to be some more.
Like the Heroes of the Storm stuff was pretty frivolous. And
Heroes of the Storm is Blizzard,
right? But I'm saying like. This is Blizzard's like cornerstone product.
Oh, it's their flagship.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is where all.
And you notice they didn't do it in like Diablo.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Lunar New Year.
That would have been kind of.
That would just be like, I don't know, werewolves or something. Like Lunar New Year. It's like
right. So we'll see. It's certainly sort of a new paradigm, and it kind of took, oddly enough, the Lunar New Year.
I think it's funny that like you say that because to me it's not a new paradigm at all. It's this is years old to me.
Well, it's happened, but it's never been this prevalent. I mean. Just in running Sifted for the last 3 or 4 years, I see everything that comes in, and trust me, man, it is way bigger than it used to be.
Well, I think also because people have learned to, like, you got to release a trailer, you got to put out it used to be, like you said, kind of a quiet thing that
just log in.
If you played the game, you'd log in and be, oh, it's this now, it's cool, I like it. It's Star Wars Old Republic, it's Christmas time now. I don't remember what they call it, it's like Life Day or something like that. But like, it's cool, yeah, it's like Christmas stuff and it's neat. But like now there's a trailer and there's a press release and there's a reminder and there's another trailer and there's a Twitter thing, and so now, like, yeah, I can see why it would be coming through the Sifted back end way more prominently.
Oh, it's like night and day. Seriously. All right, let's move along. Next, we're going to talk about a game that was announced this week, and the big question is, do we need it? That game is Dirt 4, and we're going to talk first about Dirt 4, and then we're going to move on to a bigger conversation about racing or driving games in general. So, Dirt 4, Dirt Rally just came out last year. One of the hardest driving games I've ever played, I might add. Did you ever get a chance to play it? It was. I wasn't doing an eval for it.
I don't understand how Rally works. I like driving games, but like Rally stuff is too hard for me.
It was one of the most difficult racing games I've ever played. I didn't have to do an eval for it, and after, I don't know, probably 2 hours, I was like, screw this. I
pretty much consider real life like rally driver teams to be wizards.
They're insane. First of all, the balls that it takes to do what they do, I'm standing in amazement.
I think it takes balls to watch it.
It
like,
does.
There's all those videos of them
just
like plowing into people. It's like
killing like 40
you don't know?
people. You don't. You really don't, man. Like any car on any turn could just flip over and just smash you like a bug. So they put out Dirt Rally last year, which is kind of redundant, isn't it? Because Dirt is a rally game. That's like calling it like Dirt or Rally. Like I don't understand why they created like this splinter off of the Dirt franchise, because Dirt's always been a rally racing game. Now Dirt Rally is more sim-based, and Dirt is more sort of arcade style.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a big fan of the mainline Dirt games. I love them.
I do like them.
They're great. But when you have games like...
Was Colin McRae attached to that?
It was,
earlier? Yeah. I think the last one I played was either 2 or 3, and like I don't remember which one it was, but it was like actually super involved. Like the story mode was like really involved, and I got in my own trailer, and I had to call people on the phone, and like
no, you're right.
I'm like wow, I like have meetings with sponsors and stuff. I was like, wow, this is very involved. I did not expect this to be as.
I still play Dirt 3 all the time because it's one of the few PC games I have that play in 3D really well. Like I have.
It's also real pretty. I think it still looks great now.
Yeah, like and when I get and that's just another thing. When I always upgrade my video card, one of the first games I play is Dirt 3.
That makes sense.
Because it is just stunning. Even today, Dirt 3 is still stunning. And I have like those proprietary like GTX like 3D glasses, and like for whatever reason, only a few games really work with it, or they try to jimmy it and patch it. But Dirt 3 was one of like the native games that they built from the ground up, so it looks amazing in 3D. That said, with games like Forza Horizon 2 on the market, and do we need another rally game right now?
I don't, but I get that people would not find Forza Horizon to be a viable substitute for Dirt 4. I don't
know though.
Forza Horizon, I love Forza Horizon, but it's a much more loosey-goosey kind of I mean, it's much further towards, I'd say, the outrun side of the driving spectrum than kind of what Dirt 4 manages to balance itself against. Not Dirt 4, but like Dirt as a series manages to balance itself against. I can see why someone who was really into that style of racing would not consider Forza Horizon 3 a redundant game to a dedicated rally game.
Well, it's not a pure rally racer. Obviously, it has street racing and everything else, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I race in the dirt and off-road in Forza Horizon 2, it feels just as good to me as Dirt 3 does. I don't feel like the physics are any less, or it feels any less realistic. And I mean, let's be honest, Dirt is an arcade driving game as well. Mm-hmm. And I guess the bigger point I'm getting at is we're already seeing a lack or a dwindling interest in the racing genre. There are a few racing games being released, fewer now than maybe ever in the history of video games, I would say. There are fewer being released. Mm-hmm.
In part because Gran Turismo just disappeared again.
Yeah. But,
and then they shut down Drive Club's developer.
But look, there was feigning interest in Gran Turismo with the last entry. Like, its sales, ever since the first version of it for the PlayStation 3, it's just gone down, down, down with every release. So it makes me wonder, like, I'm not saying, like, personally, as someone who likes driving games, is Dirt 4 pointless, but I'm saying, like, market-wise, is it pointless?
I don't think, there's not really that much out there, and I guess we'll find out one way or the other, but one of the reasons I think Gran Turismo has fallen behind is because it never kept up presentationally. Yeah. It never kept up, Forza really embraced the idea of loving driving, loving cars, loving that whole life, that whole world, and Dirt kind of has that, in the rally sector, kind of nailed down, and I feel
what Dirt does better than anyone else
and it's also going to be less frickin' annoying than having to listen to the bro party all through Forza Horizon 3.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a rally person, but like I can see the spot for Dirt 4. But of course, it's also partly is this THQ Nordic doing this? Or
no, it's Codemasters.
Codemasters.
Yeah.
It's largely about managing expectations.
Well, the other thing is that's all Codemasters does. So
right.
if Codemasters isn't putting out driving games, it's not putting out games.
And I'm curious about I think this series is probably much bigger in Europe.
Oh, for sure.
So we may not have the best handle on where the hunger is for this one. I don't know. I feel like Dirt has its place. I don't. It's just,
like I said, I like the series.
It's got a different tone and attitude from Forza.
Well, night driving appears to be the big new addition for Dirt 4.
That's cool.
Which I never realized until I saw that trailer and it focused it on night driving. Then I thought back and I was like, yeah, Dirt 3 didn't have night racing. Yeah. The other thing Dirt is really good at is vehicle damage. Mm-hmm. It is like the king of vehicle damage. Like, that's half the fun of playing Dirt to me, is just going out and trying to destroy the car and seeing just how badly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can go like almost right down to the frame. Like, that's how meticulous the damage is. You compare it to something like Gran Turismo, where it's a joke pretty much the way they handle damage in those games. And for the longest time, they didn't have damage at all.
At all, yeah.
But again, I'm a big fan of Dirt. I'm a big fan of driving games. I just am wondering if this game is just going to kind of go out into the ether, at least here, when it's released. And it's coming fast, too. It comes out in like 2 or 3 months.
I mean, it might. Certainly, you don't see very often people just like, you know what, I wish to come out another Dirt game. It's not really a thing I really see.
Yeah.
But they've made 3 of them, so they must sell to somebody.
Yeah.
I have Dirt. I know I have Dirt 3 on Steam because I got it through some Humble Bundle thing and for free almost. I think, and that's cool. It's pretty.
Power sliding in that game is great.
Yeah. And
it probably has the most intuitive power sliding of any rally game.
It's also got, it's really good about not just damage, but dirt and, the stuff on the windshield and water on the windshield and mud on the, I mean, it's got a real sense of place that I don't think, like Forza Horizon gets the sense of place in terms of like the location it takes place in.
Yeah.
But like, I think to my memory, Dirt puts you there in the seat of that car more than Forza Horizon does.
Matt, why do you think driving games have fallen so far in the last 5-6 years?
I don't know. Maybe because they're so repetitive. Maybe people prefer to rent them, and because how many times you can go around that track. Basically, I certainly have never finished a Forza mainline game.
I haven't either. I mean, I played Forza Horizon 2 for like 50 hours.
Yeah.
And I think I finished it, and it was like, I was at like 52%.
Yeah. I mean,
I didn't finish it. I mean, when I finally said, okay, I'm good enough
Right.
to write the eval for this, it was at like 51%.
You know what happened? The same thing happened to me in Forza Horizon 3 that happened on 2 was once I got all the billboards and drove down all the roads, I didn't care about doing any events.
Yeah.
Like, the open world stuff is more compelling to me in Forza Horizon than the actual racing. But in Dirt, I think there's so much care taken towards the actual racing that's the fun part. That might be the main difference, I would say, between those two series.
I wonder too if culturally, and look, I think one thing the racing games have done to try to mitigate this is allowed you to have the rewind feature.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if a lot of people are turned off to the genre because, and a lot of times, once you get up past the first couple Grand Prix in driving games, like you make one mistake, it's over.
Yeah.
Like literally, if you don't have a rewind feature, you make one mistake and you have to stop and like.
Oh, as someone who played the 24-hour Le Mans real-time race on the Dreamcast, you bet. And like it was a tag team effort. But one of the other things that might be contributing to the slowdown of driving games is maybe the new generation doesn't really give a shit about cars.
That could be.
Like,
because part of it is kind of a love with
and being in love with the idea of a car,
yeah.
and like I see more and more people like they're afraid of driving, they hate driving, they don't want to own a car, they don't care about cars, or they can't wait for cars to drive themselves.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
If you're not interested in the fantasy that driving games present, why would you want to play that as a video game?
Yeah.
Video games are, at least in part, about escapism and wish fulfillment. And if you don't wish to drive a Ferrari,
why would you
care?
Yeah, I hear that. I think that might be a valid reason. I wish there was
certainly not me. I mean, I love cars, and you will force me into an auto driving car, like kicking and screaming. Although I think the technology is awesome, but I don't like driving in the city.
Oh, I'm petrified of being in a self-driving car.
I love controlling a car. Driving.
Some
a car.
of the new ones don't even have steering wheels and nothing at all in them. Like the newest self-driving cars.
I'm gonna need a steering wheel.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need something to grab onto.
And a brake pedal.
Even if it doesn't do anything.
And a brake pedal. But the new ones I just saw at the, was it the LA Auto Show that just happened?
Like they're basically like living rooms on wheels.
Yes.
Like there's nothing.
It's just this room that you sit in, and there's nothing. It's like if it goes out of control, you're just like, with your face up against the window. Help me! Oh, I don't know. It's crazy times that we live in. But look, I'm disappointed. I've been a big racing fan my whole life. I feel like there are some of the best head-to-head multiplayer games that you can play. I think Sam can attest to that. He's a big Mario Kart fan. The feeling that you get when you're racing head-to-head against friends in racing games, like, I don't know if there's too many multiplayer games that can replicate that.
So you screw up, and then you're hopelessly behind, and you just have to finish the race because fuck you.
Well, you get the blue shell. But
you don't get the blue shell in Forza.
Nope, you sure don't. But on the occasion whenever the races are tight and like you're coming around that last turn, like man, that adrenaline that you get, it's like
I really miss Burnout.
Yeah,
like I like I love most of the Need for Speed games, especially the old ones. I miss the old Need for Speed, sort of the original Need for Speed 3, Hot Pursuit.
Yeah.
Hot Pursuit, yeah. The first cop chase game.
Yeah.
Where they had tracks like Atlantica, which took you through this kind of weird sort of like submarine city that like was like nothing that actually exists. Like the imagination that was on display.
The San Francisco Rush games. You remember San Francisco Rush for the N64?
Oh yeah.
Sam and I were talking about that a couple weeks ago after we got done shooting, and how
the stunt course
the game just came out of nowhere and it became like my obsession.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think who tipped me off to that was Matt Casamassina back on IGN64.com back in the day.
Or Split Second.
Yep,
another one. Buena Vista put out was awesome.
Yeah.
Didn't sell, disappeared. We'll never see it again.
Yeah.
But that if you have access or can find a copy of Split Second, like play that. Like that game is amazing.
Yep.
And got no recognition. No one noticed that game.
I don't know what it's going to take for the genre to bounce back, honestly, but
I don't know. I mean, like we talked about the last week or the week before, it's just, the way sales are going, it might just end up being an era of readjusting one's expectations in terms of what you can spend on a game and still make money off it.
Or games as a platform, like we were saying. You know,
which racing games would seem to be
it seems to make
very
the
ripe
most
for the
sense.
picking on that.
Like
yeah.
more sense than any other genre, really.
Yeah, like maybe Gran Turismo can keep up if they just sort of incrementally make more stuff on a monthly basis or something, you know?
Yeah, especially once they hit like the Scorpio level with everything.
Yeah.
It's like once the visuals look that good, it's
but
like
but I expect like Forza 7. I would expect something different in that along those lines. I would be surprised if the new Forza. Hell, I might even be surprised if it's called Forza 7.
Right.
It might just be Forza World or Forza. I don't know, whatever buzzword they want to call it, but in the sense of like Forza is this is your Forza portal into the Forza world that will like forever be how Forza delivers content to you for this and this and that, you know?
Right.
Kind of like what that Halo connection thing that app was supposed to be, and no one ever cared again. Like, you remember that?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it'll last, but I'm just saying I would surprise me if they don't try to position Forza as sort of this, hub thing.
What will happen then, though? What will happen then, though, is that they will just, with the base game that you buy for the $60, where it normally would have like 180 cars, it'll have like 60.
Right.
And then they'll just
they're already kind of getting there.
They are kind of getting there, yeah. They'll just start slowly dripping them out in DLC, $15 at a time or whatever. So they are still doing that, you're right.
Yeah. You can buy the season pass for the 2017 Forza season.
Yeah.
All these extra. But you could also pay a little extra for this Fast and the Furious pack we just put out for $4.99. Oh, you put. We got the car and driver guys to put together their favorite cars, and that's only $3.99 for this. It's just like.
And they paid us $100,000 to put their name on this thing. Yeah.
Maybe I'll just wait, like I did with Drive Club. Maybe I'll just wait a year and get all the DLC for $9.
Yeah.
Because you tried to gouge us and nobody.
Or free, because eventually what they end up doing is just giving it all away.
That happens too.
All right, let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about Mass Effect Andromeda. We talk about this is turning into the new Switch. We talk about Andromeda almost every week on the show, but EA is doing a really good job of keeping the game relevant week after week by leaking new details or new information about it. The information that came out this week wasn't exactly positive. Mm-hmm. Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer will not have dedicated servers, and there will not be crossplay. So you won't be able to play on Xbox One against people on PC or on PS4. The bigger issue probably is the dedicated servers.
Right. I didn't expect any kind of crossplay on anything.
Well, I
frankly.
mean, with the way Microsoft is pushing the whole Play Anywhere thing, like there were hopes that maybe that might come to fruition. And look, a lot more games are starting to do crossplay that are third party and not just Microsoft internal games. So, no dedicated servers. Matt, is this one of the most overblown things in video games, whether a game has dedicated servers or not?
Well, it is to me, but I don't care about multiplayer, so I'm probably not
the
person to ask.
No, but let's imagine that you do. Do you think people make a bigger deal out of it than they should? Dedicated servers versus peer-to-peer?
Maybe. Like, I don't notice the difference, really.
I do. I mean, I can tell the difference. Like, for instance...
I don't play enough of that kind of thing to really notice.
I can always tell immediately when I'm playing a shooter and I become the host.
Oh, yeah.
In peer-to-peer. Yeah. Immediately. Like, my score goes from whatever to cha-ching, immediately goes up.
Was Battlefront dedicated servers, or was it peer-to-peer? It was peer-to-peer.
I think it was.
Because Battlefront was the worst time I ever had in terms of game sync with what was happening on my screen versus what was happening on
And it happens in Call of
screen.
Duty all the time as well on consoles.
So I get why it's an issue. I feel like because that's the thing is like there's a weird balance there where like I try to play those games as like very casual. It's like I'm just gonna go in and shoot some people and do some stuff, but I inevitably my competitive fighting game streak comes out and I'm just like that was I know that was bullshit because I saw you, I shot at you, and all of a sudden I fell over dead for no good reason.
Yeah.
And then you see the replay and it's like oh well what happened on his screen is completely different from what I saw on my screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like well how in the world am I supposed to feel like this is a legitimately competitive game when that's happening? So I mean I get why the dedicated server, but it's also like I generally, if I play a game and the peer-to-peer stuff is just not sufficient, I'll just not play that game.
But they're all that way. I mean, it's
right.
like they're either peer-to-peer or dedicated, and a lot of people say, "Oh, peer-to-peer sucks and dedicated is better," but you end up dealing with other X factors with dedicated servers because it is ping. It's like how far away do you live from the server? Somebody who lives a block away from where the server is has a huge advantage, and they're going to whoop your ass. They're going to win every face-to-face confrontation. That's really where you see the difference, is when you're running and you run into somebody else, and it's just pull up and shoot. Like that, you tend to win those if you're the host in peer-to-peer. and you tend to win those if you're the guy with the 5 ping because you're right next to a server farm or whatever. So is one or the other better than the other?
Doesn't sound like it.
It really doesn't. Like, and so
you're trading one for the other, basically. And I guess hoping you get to be the if at least if you're the low ping bastard on a dedicated server,
LPB,
you get to stay it. It's not random.
But see, that's the thing. You're always going to be the LPB,
right?
Because you're not moving. You're still living where you're living. Those servers aren't going anywhere. You're always going to have an advantage, at least with peer-to-peer.
Score.
Right. At least with peer-to-peer, like
everybody gets boned in turn.
Eventually, everybody gets boned. But eventually, you're going to become the host. Like enough people are going to leave the game. You're going to be the last one, the person who's been on that game, that session the longest, and you're going to end up becoming the host. And then you're never going to stop playing it. That's not what happened to me.
Oh, I've had a couple Battlefront games like that, too.
Or I played
I can kill everybody now. What's going on? And my friend's like, you're the host. I'm like,
that's exactly what happens.
I'm just going to keep doing this.
If that happens to me in Call of Duty, this happened to me before at like 1:30 in the morning. And I was like, I'm not quitting. I just stayed up all night because I was you just wreck people. It's like every close confrontation you get in, you win.
And from their perspective, like, they don't even know what happened.
No, they know. They're like, go. They're like,
they just fell over. Like, they didn't even see you raise a gun, like, because it already happened.
But no, you hear them because a lot of shooters, they give like that 2-second window so you can hear the people complaining and you kill.
Oh, when you get close enough and you hear the ambiance. Yeah.
And you hear them go, that's a bunch of, and then it cuts off. You're the hook. Cuts off. Yeah, so and when you're in there, and I'll stay on there until like I have to leave or I absolutely have to go to sleep or whatever. But this is something that every single game that comes out, they put out this story, like the sites. They're like, there's no dedicated servers, or there are dedicated servers, and people do, thank God. But really, at the end of the day, it's not that big a deal, I don't think. Particularly with a game like Mass Effect, it's not like a Twitch shooter. Like
is this competitive? Is this?
I don't
co-op.
I don't know.
Like 3 was.
I don't know. I think there's going to be some competitive in there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That sure isn't anything I care about in Mass Effect.
The bigger topic I wanted to talk about was dedicated versus peer-to-peer. This was just kind of the Trojan horse to get into the conversation. To me, with Mass Effect, whether it's co-op or competitive multiplayer, it really doesn't matter that much. It's not like Call of Duty where if it's not running at 60 frames per second, you don't want to play it. It's like it's a much lazier, kind of more laid-back multiplayer environment. So it's not so much to deal with Mass Effect, but it's just the fact that this is one of these things that our industry talks about and it's such a big deal. But really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think there's that much of a difference between peer-to-peer or dedicated. I feel like it's half of one, two of another. Like, choose your poison, basically. Either you want to deal with the fact that there's one guy, he's always going to be better than everybody because he's an LPB, or do you want to deal with sort of a rotating carousel of people who become better for a little while, and then somebody else becomes better for a little while?
I guess in theory I would prefer probably the dedicated, just because then at least you can get used to your consistent disadvantage.
Yeah, that's a good
And maybe I can ID the guy. Okay, this guy clearly has the advantage. I know to get away from him. I know to not deal with it. We know to gang
at least
up on
it's
him.
consistent, is what you're saying.
So
you can maybe try to learn to acclimate to it.
Whereas like one of the most frustrating things about Battlefront was like every time a match would start, you're like, all right, let's find out if I'm going to get hosed in this one or not. And I guess I can. At least dedicated servers, like you know what kind of like skull fucking you're in for. like you have an expectation you can live with.
I agree with that. I'd probably give the slight nod to dedicated servers, but
neither one's an ideal solution.
No, and I also think that dedicated it's still also way overblown on how important it is.
I mean, you'll live. I mean, I still played 40 hours of Battlefront, even with the peer-to-peer problems.
Yeah, and it is a case-by-case basis because you talk to someone who lives out in a rural area, they'll tell you they'll take peer-to-peer every time. Right. Because they're never going to be close to a server. They're always going to be like the highest ping player on the server. So it depends on where you live. Living in a city,
they should have like contests. Like that should be like the contest. Like if you win and you're out in the middle of the boonies, like you will put a dedicated server like down your street.
Yeah.
Like.
You know what they should also do is like they should just acclimate for like the peer-to-peer stuff. I think Call of Duty actually experimented with that for a while, where they put kind of like a lag on the host, so that they didn't have an advantage.
I think Gears did that at some point too.
Yeah, I think maybe right.
But you run, every once in a while you run to a game like Battlefront that doesn't even try.
Yeah,
and it's just
like whatever, it runs.
Yeah, which with dice is kind of all you can ask these days.
Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting, like, and for whatever reason today, whenever they put out the announcement for Andromeda, I was like, and I'm guilty of it. Like, I had been guilty of it. Like, oh my gosh, there's not dedicated servers. What are they thinking? And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, what am I talking about? What's everyone talking about? There's really
this whole courtroom is out of order.
Yeah, exactly. So, I thought it might be interesting to discuss, and I think it actually was. So, all right, let's move on.
Chat saying Battlefront does have dedicated servers.
Battlefront does?
Yeah.
Wow.
Would never have known.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that either. Are you sure? Is that just on PC, though? See, I play on console.
I played it on PS4, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if that is, he says almost all Battlefront games, or Battlefield
all dice games? I don't know. Whatever it was, it sucked.
Yeah. So there you go. Half of one, two of the other. Let's move on to our obligatory Nintendo Switch topic for the week. It's actually been really quiet on the Switch front this week. Hasn't been like a lot of, like, the last couple weeks has just been
you should try to keep it down when people are mourning.
What are they mourning?
The preemptive death of the system, maybe? I don't know.
You think so?
I don't think it's going to go too well past year one, no.
No? So you're agreeing with me, what I said. That I didn't think it was going to be successful, was going to do under $5 million this year. A lot of people in the comments last week thought I was crazy for saying that, by the way.
A lot of people said the same thing about the Wii U.
Yeah.
So, and again, you don't have to be able to judge this thing by the launch. Like, the Wii U sold out almost at launch, too. I mean,
some people were so mad that they created accounts just to come in and tell me how crazy I was. A couple of our old lurkers came back this week. And they got banned very quickly, I might add. But they did come back, and I could tell, because what happens is they reach out on Twitter first, and they say, hey, they've been kind of negative about Nintendo, and then you go into the comments for GameFace, and here's like 3 accounts all at like 0 or level 1 who are saying the same thing that these people said on Twitter. It's like, come on, you gotta be better than that. Like, I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
I just don't think there's anything there to tempt someone who isn't already
on board,
already drinking the Kool-Aid, basically.
So the only news really that came out of Switchland, other than
you can't get one.
Yeah, I guess 80%.
Actually, the main thing I saw about Switch this week, from like in terms of just like talk, was like the people who were rushing to get a Pro controller because they'd go up for like pre-order on like Amazon or Best Buy for like 5 seconds, and then like they'd
Pro controllers sold out like that.
Yeah. I still think...
What does that say? Does that say that people aren't believers in
holy
Joy-Cons?
God, people don't want to use Joy-Cons.
Is that what it
that
says?
says to me.
Yeah.
Or they're not making many Pro controllers. I think you're still going to be able to go into like a Best Buy or a big box store, and they're going to have all those... accessories really never sell out.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're allocating the entire shipment to pre-orders. I think people are like saying like, oh, it's sold out already. No, I think like 500,000 are sold out already. Right. And they're going to ship 1.5 million of them.
Yeah.
More than that.
They're saying in Japan, 80% of the launch allotment is sold out through pre-orders already. But I'm guessing that's maybe 1 million.
Yeah, but remember, like PSVR was sold out through pre-orders like for months, and you could, the launch day, you could walk into Target or Best Buy and buy one, and they thank you for it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think the demand for Switch will probably be larger than the demand for PSVR, because PSVR was a much more niche thing. Yeah, they better hope it is. But I am not entirely convinced that, at the very least, I would think, maybe the first 3-4 people in line at your average Best Buy will be able to get one if they wait overnight, or something like that. I wouldn't, but I have a hard time seeing this selling out before launch day. Maybe by noon on launch day.
Yeah, so a Japanese magazine did a poll of Japanese gamers, and of those gamers, 10% said that they intend to purchase the Switch. Any reason for alarm?
I don't have any other data points to compare that to. Like, I don't know what the percentage of people who said that for
about the PlayStation 4.
The same poll from the same place about the PS4 or whatever. Like,
you also need to know data on who these people are. Are they predominantly mobile gamers? Are they hardcore console gamers? Are they handheld gamers who love the 3DS and the Vita?
I mean, it seems low to me, but like, I don't know. Like,
Where was the Wii U?
Yeah, what was the Wii U like? I mean, I can't blame anyone for wanting to wait and see on this one.
Yeah.
You know? So if it is low, it might just be people that plan to get one later, which doesn't mean never. So that's still a win for Nintendo in the sense that if someone buys a Switch March 2018, they've still sold them a Switch.
Yeah.
It just and Nintendo is certainly not impatient. When it's not like Sony where it's like, no, we bought a move, shut it all down. We're gonna, Nintendo will generally stick with stuff, unless it's the Wii U.
One thing I really like about the Switch's release date is that scalpers are pretty much screwed. Because usually a console comes out like right before the holidays.
Yeah, you have that.
And the scalpers get to go on there and gouge all the parents who are trying to find them for their kids for Christmas.
Well, it certainly happened with the NES Classic.
It did.
So.
Yep.
Still
happening.
Still happening.
But the scalpers, the market's going to be a little more limited this time. So maybe the people who actually want the consoles, to want to buy the consoles to actually play them, will get them this time, which is a good thing. So,
and I think it seems to me that the people, that's really where the scalpers have you by the balls, is in that Christmas situation. Whereas like
you got to have it, you got to get it before that day.
Yeah, but I feel in general like you're certainly, even if you're a Super Nintendo fan, I think you probably hate scalpers to the point that like you will be able to resist paying a scalper, premium, and maybe they'll just get stuck with them,
right?
And I mean, obviously, at worst case, they're gonna return them for retail, but maybe when they return them for retail, the person who buys it next will be someone who actually wants it.
Yeah. So in spite of all this we just said, do you think that 10% figure is still kind of low?
It feels low, but again, I don't have any other data points to compare it to, so I might just be overestimating what percentage of people. But it's like if you're talking about a gaming poll, right? Specifically polling gamers. You'd think more than 10% of them would want to play Zelda.
Yeah, you'd think. I think it's honestly a lot to do about nothing.
I would like to see that poll done here in America, where maybe for a gaming population that's not quite as dedicated to mobile stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the polling that we've done on Sifted for Switch seemed like about half of sifters were going to get it, eventually. At least eventually. I would say about 10, actually, now that I think about it, about 10% were like, I'm getting it day one, no question. And then the other 40% of that came like, I'm waiting to see more software, I'm going to pick it up eventually.
I mean, I think that's the more reasonable standpoint. So, just because people are waiting to see what happens after Zelda, because, I mean, the launch lineup's like 10 games now, and 8 of them are available on other platforms.
Yep.
Called it.
Yeah.
And 2 of the, it's 1-2 Switch and Bomberman are the 2 that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's not going to sell me a $300 system.
No.
So, I can't blame anybody for wanting to wait and see. But, that wait and see might only be as long as it takes for Mario to come out. Who knows? So that's still a successful launch year for Nintendo if a bunch of people decide to jump in when Mario and more robust software is there in the fall. Because I think they want to release it in the fall anyway, frankly.
Yeah, I think they just needed that little boost to
I don't think they can,
finances.
Yeah, you can't probably Zelda you couldn't push past the fiscal year.
Yeah, well, they just need revenue, period.
Well, also, maybe they don't
the bottom is falling out of their console business.
Yeah,
so.
maybe they also don't want, like, Wii U revenue on the next year's books or something like that. I don't know what
could be.
What the
Not
rules
that there
are.
would be any.
Not necessarily, no, but it's like, those things are dry. I don't know if you know, like, people were talking about getting clearance Wii U's or something, getting Wii U's. No, they're gone.
Really?
Like, there's rumors that Nintendo basically recalled them.
Why?
So they can sell them refurbished for $200 on their website.
Interesting.
I haven't seen any actual proof of that, but if you go to a store, you think Wii U's would just be laying around. No, they're gone.
Well, it could be that they're only given so much shelf space, and they have to pull back the Wii U's so that they can use that shelf space.
Yeah,
for
but they wouldn't
Switch.
be doing that yet.
We're getting close.
They've been gone for months.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I can't understand why they buy them back to sell them cheaper on their website, though.
I don't know how that all works. That's all.
It is Nintendo.
No, that's also kind of there's a buyback return thing with retail and distribution chains, and that's all changed since I worked retail.
Nintendo's very business savvy. So one thing I will say is anything that is done is probably to improve its bottom line.
Yeah, there are ways you can do it, but I mean, I've heard there's ways to do that, but like the retail chain distribution chain has changed drastically since I worked retail.
Yeah.
Which was 17 years ago. So.
Yeah.
But I've heard from people who still work in high enough places in store management that, like, there's there's ways everybody can kind of recoup their costs to some degree, and the manufacturer can get their stuff back and do what they need to do with it.
Gotcha.
So that might be what's happening there. But like, I know there were some people that are kind of counting on like, oh, Wii U's are going to get slashed to like crazy clearance prices, and I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think they're there anymore. I think Nintendo took them.
Oh, they mishandled that console so poorly. They really did a bad job with that. All right, let's move on. Our last topic of the show, Yakuza 0. Matt, you've been playing this game
Yes.
for the last week.
Since Tuesday.
Since Tuesday, so almost a week. Mm-hmm. Been getting huge reviews from some publications. I saw like 9+ on a couple sites. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at its Metacritic, but I'm guessing it's settling around mid
90-ish, 88.
Really? That high?
It was. Last I looked. I haven't looked in a while.
Is it that good?
Yes, I think it's the best.
Really?
I think it's the best game in the series.
Well, sure. It should be.
I don't know. I mean,
but is it up to that pedigree, the high 8-9 range?
I would say so for what it is.
Wow.
In terms of like
what it is, what does that mean?
Like an action RPG story-driven beat-em-up? Yeah. It's like there's not really anything else like it. That's kind of the attraction of it, is there's nothing else like it.
Yeah. And is there nothing else like it because of its cultural kind of differences?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like Japanese developers trying to make like
It is the most Japanese game you will play this year. Like, I don't care even you're just playing...
Even more than like a JRPG.
Oh, by far. Because here's the thing...
It's about Japanese culture.
It's about Japan. It's about Japanese culture. They're all like that. Every single game, almost every game in the series, like revolves around shady real estate deals.
Yeah.
It is an immersion in this. I mean, it's a heightened kind of stereotypical depiction of the Japanese underworld, like very influenced by Yakuza movies, the Tokyo Papers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like a documentary about what it's like to be a Yakuza, but it just takes that kind of it's the glorification of the underworld the same way the Godfather movies do it. The mafia never existed like that.
It makes it seem
But it makes it this romantic, glamorous take on it, and this is sort of the similar way of doing this, even though it does depict everything as kind of a horrible life to have to live. Yeah. But also you get to be a badass, so... but I mean, there's like... It's famous for like, Yakuza 3 has a 45-minute cutscene in the middle of it, in which mostly it's a bunch of older men sitting around a table talking about real estate deals. That like, and it gets this one has that too, where it's like it gets tied in with because if you've played the other games, because this game takes place in 1988 when Majima and Kiryu Kazuma, there are two major. Kiryu is the main character of the series. Majima was a major antagonist in the original games, who became a fan favorite. So that's probably why you're playing it. He's been through the whole thing. He's the guy with the eye patch. He's kind of the crazy dude, kind of crazy knife happy wacky dude.
And happy wacky dude.
And there's actually a really, when you first run into him for the first time in this game, is in Chapter 3. They do a really good subversion of expectations where he's working at a major club with like a jazz band and hostesses and all this stuff, super high end, and this guy is starting trouble, and the characters you followed into the place, or like the one older CEO wants to leave because he's afraid of what's going on. The younger guy's like, no, just wait, the manager will take care of it. And you see Majima come in, and you're like, oh, he's gonna just beat this guy to hell. And what happens is completely not what you think is about to happen, because all these games have built up what you think this character is, but here he is, he's 23, 24 years old. We've never seen him this young except in a flashback in Yakuza 4.
Right.
And he completely subverts what you think he's going to do. And you're like, what happened? Like, what's going on? And then he hasn't
got there yet. He hasn't become a
No,
maniac
he has, but like that's not useful to him in that position. He is still the buck biggity wild violent guy, but he has another reason for doing what he's doing at that club, and it's very interesting stuff. See, that's the thing. Is like,
is it interesting though? Do you think
for
most Western audiences it'll be interesting?
I mean, it depends how open you are to kind of a different style of.
To someone who's never been to Japan, do you think it'll be interesting?
Not as interesting, maybe, but like, if you like crime stuff, like crime drama stuff, I think you will dig it. It's interesting to me in the sense that, like, I have definitely complained, I think you have too, about stuff like in Final Fantasy 15 and World of Final Fantasy and various kind of JRPG games that, like, there's that weird sort of, it's, the way of the performances and the drama and the way the motion capture acting works, like, it's that kind of heightened Japanese style, almost no drama NOH, no drama, kind of like style of comedy and acting and people running around and looking, and like it just doesn't translate to a global audience very well. Whereas I think while there is that level of wackiness and some of that like kind of distinctly Japanese cultural spin in the Yakuza games, I think they play properly to an international audience better than that, because
the sort of over the top antics that you get.
Somewhat, it's not as pronounced in these games, but it is there, and it is. Sometimes you get the scenes where people are dramatically screaming each other's names, and someone is begging on the ground, like almost like some kind of caricature of what you would expect that to be. And that goes back to those Yakuza movies that they're basing this on. But like it works here not just because it's set in Japan, so it's like the difference in culture kind of works because you're expecting that, but also because the character work and the drama and the narrative work in these games is so much better than anything Square has put out in their JRPGs in forever. Like, these characters are consistent across multiple games, even games that don't count in canon, like the zombie one. And like you know what to expect from these guys, and they know what you know to expect, so they can trick you on some of these things. And like this, the little character touches where like Kiryu's a very serious guy through most of the series. But in this one, he's very young, and you've never seen him this young, and he's still got a little bit, he's disco dancing still. He's still got a little bit of teenager to him. Instead of like, stoically realizing a new move is useful, he will see a new thing that inspires him to do a new move, and he'll go, "That's rad," because it is 1988. Also,
good job there, Sam.
So
with the disco dancing.
Yeah, see. This is the karaoke scene. So he does sing several karaoke songs. There's another disco dance mini game, which is one of the weirdest dancing mini games I have ever played.
So let's talk about the game itself. So I think a lot of people who maybe have never played a Yakuza game may assume that it's exactly what the graphic says, Grand Theft Japan. Is it like a Grand Theft Auto set in Japan? There's no driving, though,
No, there's no driving. There is, staged action set pieces from cars in a couple places, but you cannot steal someone's car. Right? You're running around a moderately sized open chunk of city, and you get in fights as you run. There'll be guys who
can you go wherever you want, whenever you want. Usually,
unless there's like something happening in the story that's going to funnel. It's like the beginning. You're funneled to various places, and then chapter 2 happens, and it's like go nuts, go do whatever you want to do. And eventually, there's things called sub-stories, which are side quests that you run into with usually there's slightly comedic or somewhat, maudlin. There's a lot, and the funny thing is, like, and maybe you wouldn't notice it if you're not thinking about it, but these games, much like Okami, have a very conservative, politically conservative in Japan, politically conservative mindset, and a lot of what happens in these games is you'll run into someone who has a problem, and the reason they have a problem generally turns out to be that they've done something stupid or done something selfish or done something that kind of contradicts the general social norms or social code.
Yeah.
And you, as the noble Yakuza, kind of help them out and generally beat somebody up. And then kind of they realize like, oh, this was the wrong thing to do, and we won't bother these people anymore. And then the guy you're trying to help is like, it's like, I understand now, and I will do the right thing by traditional prescribed behavior norms, and everything's going to be fine. And then you walk away, and then your character will think to themselves about like, I think everything's going to be all right now. Good work, me. It's like, it's all kind of by that formula, but it's like it's all done there's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of comedy to it. There's they're not afraid to go pretty weird in places.
Oh but definitely.
I mean, not as much like Yakuza 2 probably has the most infamous example where you end up busting up a bunch of gangsters who are having like a baby night with diapers on and stuff.
I've seen crazy stuff in these games.
And then Yakuza 3 is also, I think 3 is famous for the part where you have to punch out a tiger.
Yeah. But this game doesn't have shooting either.
That you do have guns, but they're kind of auto targeting.
Right.
It's a beat 'em up more than anything else. The combat is instanced. You'll see guys and they'll run up and it'll be like, okay, time to fight. You'll change.
So you can't just run around the open world and just walk up and fight people.
No, that would be rude. But basically and it's better than it used to be because you used to have to wait through a loading screen. But now you'll walk like here you see like it says hooligans. Like you see these guys, you'll eventually learn to identify who the guys who will attack you are, and they'll see you and go like, hey, and they'll run over to you and the fight will start.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll like see like one of them walking around by themselves. You can run into them, and they'll be like, "Hey!" and then you'll fight. You know, you can generally control when you get in a fight.
Okay.
They added this weird thing that I find a little bit annoying in this one that I am pretty sure is inspired by Dark Souls, where they're in both because Kiryu here operates in Kamurocho in Tokyo, and Majima operates in Osaka, but in both maps, you'll sometimes see this like 7-foot tall dude walking around with a giant number over their head, and what that is that's Mr. Shakedown. There's these giant guys named Mr. Shakedown, and you can get away from them, but if you fight them, if you beat them, you get all their money, and if they beat you, they take all your money.
Well, I noticed when you're punching people, money flies out.
Right, money's a big deal in this. So if you lose to Mr. Shakedown, he takes all your money that you've earned through the whole game.
So a lot of risk reward. Oh, yeah. The whole game.
The whole game.
Oh,
not just what you're carrying. There's no way to bank. I mean, you can get like items that like protect some of it, but you will like So like if I have 125 million yen and I fight him and I lose that 125 million yen. Next time I see him, I can fight him, and if I beat him, I get it back.
Okay.
It remains consistent.
So it's kind of persistent in that way.
It is persistent, but you don't know where he's going to show up or when he's going to show up.
So if you shut it down and turn it back on, does he still have your money?
Yeah, he should still have your money. Although I don't do that, I save when I see him and I fight him. If I lose him, I reload.
You just load to save, yeah.
Screw that.
Screw that.
But to me, that reminds me of Dark Souls. That I think is a Dark Souls inspired moment, and they are very hard. They can be hard to beat, not just because sometimes they can kill you in like 2 hits, basically.
Oh, wow.
Like, you can't take too many hits from this. And of course, the other thing is they're not hard to dodge and fight, but it's just tedious. It takes like 20 minutes to fight.
They take a lot of damage.
But every once in a while, at this point in the game, I have like probably 100. I'm in chapter 4 or 5. I have like 150 million yen or so per character. And I'm starting to run into Mr. Shakedowns that have like 300 million yen, and I'm like, oh, I gotta fight that guy. It's like, it's just it's tempting.
So since the whole combat's built around fisticuffs,
yeah,
how deep is the combat?
It gets pretty deep. Certainly for a Yakuza
grappling
game. There is some grappling. There's 4 different fight styles per character.
Okay.
You learn them through the course of the story. So like Kiryu starts with brawling, which is kind of more of a straightforward punching and kicking. Yeah. Then he gets rush, which is much faster. So like brawling is more like boom, 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 picking stuff up and hitting people with them. Rush is dodging around guys and doing really long, lower damage combos that like kind of add up to big stuff. And then I got Beast, which is like he can take a lot of blocking hits without getting knocked over, and he has like if you just hit a button near an object, he will automatically grab it and start hitting with it without having to pick it up and then attack.
Okay.
So you can kind of just like grab stuff off the ground and instantly be in a combo with it.
Are there parries and counters?
For certain fighting styles,
okay.
And those are later abilities. And the first style that Kiryu gets is it's either him. Yeah, I think it's him. Yeah. Either him or Majima's Thug style. Every time you get hit, you'll flash red, and if you hit the button then, he'll do a counter to that. So, and then Majima has his Thug style, which is similar, kind of a straightforward beat-em-up thing. Then he gets Slugger style, where he automatically gets a baseball bat, called a pummeling bat, and you just beat the shit out of guys with the bat. And then he gets a breakdancing style, where he just breakdances. It's like big crowd control stuff, and
so that's the one I would choose.
You just backspin all the time and kick everybody forever.
That sounds like the most fun.
And then there's 2 more. I haven't unlocked the 4th style for each of them because I think those are further down the line.
So basically, this game is way more Shenmue than Grand Theft Auto.
Yes,
it's basically like
it's an evolution. It's an evolution of Shenmue. The series has always kind of been that, and I think it's better than Shenmue. And the other advantage of this one is because it's a prequel, takes place before all the others. I think it's a decent jumping in point.
It'll give you the backstory that you're going to need when you play Yakuza 6.
Like you don't. The only thing related to the other games at this point has been Majima has a flashback to the flashback in 4.
I was going to say, how can you have a flashback in a prequel?
Because Majima, in 4, you play a guy named Sajima, who was Majima's best friend before he went to prison for like 20 years for killing 18 dudes, and.
He only went to prison for 20 years for killing 18 people?
He escapes. And he's one of the 4 guys you play in Yakuza 4. But you see a flashback to the mid-'80s when he and Majima were young pups. And they're planning this thing, and Majima basically gets captured by the Yakuza guys they're working for and held away, and that's how he loses his eye, is when he's being tortured for that and all that stuff. So that has happened, but you get that flashback again in Yakuza 0, but you got it's a flashback to the flashback from 4,
right?
But it still took place earlier. So you don't need to know that. It'll just be like, you'll just see a flashback in black and white and be like, oh, okay, that's what happened before. And then what's extra good is that after this summer, I think it is, the remake of 1 is coming out here.
Right. Kiwami.
Kiwami is coming out, which is a remake of 1, which is great. And that means that if you have a PS4 and a PS3...
You can play the whole series.
You play the entire series except for 2, if you don't have 2. I mean, you can get a disc version of 2 and play it, but the disc version of 2 will run you like $200.
Jeez.
But,
oh, man, I may have one of those lying around.
The PS2 versions of 1 and 2 are very pricey.
Wow.
But the remake of 1 is great, and the great thing about it is 2 is a great game, but it's kind of a side story. You don't really need to know it to go to 3.
Got ya.
So if you wanted to play Yakuza 0, Yakuza 1, Kiwami, and then go 3, 4, 5, and then 6 when that comes out next year, you'd be set. That's a lot of Yakuza to play.
Is.
But I give these games my highest recommendation if you have any interest in Japan and any interest in kind of the crime story stuff, and you want to play something that's a little unique.
Yeah.
And you want to support something that like really, Yakuza 5 sold like 25,000 copies in the West.
And they're still bringing these over.
They're still bringing these over because the fan base is so adamant about it. And
it's 25,000 people, though.
All they got to do is subtitle it and translate.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Still, it seems crazy.
Look, every single Yakuza game I play until now, because they announced a bunch of them all at once last year. But
Matt, what are you
saying? I've always been expecting every Yakuza game I play will be the last one.
Yeah.
Because I don't expect them to ever come again, and they keep bringing them to take us credit. They keep doing it. So,
Matt, are you really saying that everyone should go buy this because it's probably going to become a collector's item?
I don't know if it will because of the digital version. The digital
hard
version,
copies. I mean, I think that's irrelevant. Though.
No, it's not, because you can still get copies of Yakuza 4, which has been out of print for a while, and Dead Souls, which has been out of print for like decent, low prices. Yakuza 3, on the other hand, which has no PSN digital version, still commands a decent price. So I think as long as you can buy something digitally, you've really cut down, because that really cuts you down to the people who want to collect them versus the people who just want to play them.
Right.
If you want to play Yakuza 3. You got to find a copy of Yakuza 3.
Yeah.
For Yakuza 4, the only reason I have a physical copy is you want to collect them, which I do. So I buy physical copies of them, except for 5, which did not have a physical copy released in the West.
Right.
I will always buy the physical copy to support them that way.
Gotcha.
And there's also a survey you can take to tell them all about why you buy them, and everyone should take that when they play the game too.
Just to wrap it up, do you think people who play or kind of predisposition to enjoy open world games will enjoy this?
I don't know about that because the open world thing is really sort of incidental more than anything else.
That's what it seems like.
I think if you are into action RPGs, very story heavy action RPGs, or if you like Virtua Fight, if you like 3D fighters, like the brawling is entertaining. It's for beat 'em up fans. It's for fans of like intricate and kind of twisting storylines, because there's always every game in this series has any number of weird characters and hidden motives and betrayals and double twists and stuff like that, and this one's no exception. And also if you're just watching this and it looks interesting, because there isn't really anything else like it.
No, that's for sure.
So
especially not coming out here.
No, not at all. But yeah, I mean, it's all about like the brawling gameplay and getting involved in the story, enjoying the characters, because a lot of them are, even if you wouldn't want to know them in real life, they are enjoyable characters. And also you should be ready for a whole mess of sexism, because
that's culture, though.
It is the culture. I mean, not Japanese culture, but it's just like that gangster culture is. That's what it's about. It's about the money and the women and the power.
Yeah.
I mean, they did the Western translation. I didn't think they would. I don't think you thought they would. They kept all those soft porn videos.
Really?
You can watch all those all the telephone cards you collect with the girls on them, and
I also think it could be argued that a little touch of Japanese culture as well, not just Yakuza culture.
It's definitely. uniquely Japanese in that respect too.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, the only thing that's different between the Japanese version and the Western version is the theme song is different. The theme song doesn't have lyrics because they couldn't lice the singer or something like that.
That's funny.
Which is funny. Yeah, music is always the hardest thing to license for whatever reason. But as far as I can tell, there is none of the content in terms of like the porn idols or the
people be getting down at the disco, Matt.
Oh, it's 1988 in a big way in this game.
I like how Sam scrubbed through the footage and managed to find the cleavage. Nice work.
And I should also mention it's weird to play this game, to play a Yakuza game that looks this good.
Yeah.
And it runs at 60.
Does it?
For a bit of the time.
There aren't a whole lot of shaders going on here.
No, but it looks better than any of the others.
Yeah.
And I will say that and again, this is on the PS4 Pro. I don't know if this is different on normal PS4s.
Yeah.
I see a lot of chugging in busy areas. I see a lot of pop-in of clutter.
Yeah.
Like boxes and bicycles on the side of it. Like they'll pop in like way closer than I think they should be popping in on a modern game.
Yeah.
So performance-wise, it is a little disappointing. But like I don't mind it so much. But it's definitely something I notice in terms of like it's such a leap in graphical. And this should tell you something about how long it's been stuck on the PS3.
Yeah.
That this is a big graphical leap.
Right.
But the graphical leap does not come with the smooth performance that sort of has also defined the series. So I'm a little disappointed in how obvious it is that when you get in the really busy streets, not so much in the alleyways and stuff, but the busy shopping streets with all this stuff happening, you'll just start seeing stuff pop in, and it's annoying.
Yakuza 6 looks a good bit better than this.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if this had a PS3 version in Japan or not. If this was a dual release.
I
can't
don't know
remember
either,
if that
actually.
was. I feel like it was, but maybe I'm thinking of Yakuza 5. No, Yakuza 5 didn't have a PS4 version.
No.
I might be totally wrong on that. I don't know. I feel for some reason something in the back of my head says that this one. Or maybe I'm thinking about Kiwami. One of them, I think, had both a PS3 and a PS4 release, so that would maybe explain that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, don't expect it to be pristine performance-wise, at least on the PS4 Pro. I don't know if there's...
I don't think people do.
Maybe not. There is jank here.
Yeah,
it is... You can even see that.
And with that in mind, do you think it's worthy of like the high 8, 9 score area?
I love it. I mean, I love all these games.
Yeah. You've also been to Japan many times. You appreciate Japanese
culture. Although I played... No, I'd been to Japan when I played the first one. But I didn't realize that we'd been staying like a mile south of where these take place until then.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that was the year... I played the first game on PS2 for like 60 hours or something. Then we went to Japan.
Yeah.
And I remember one night we ended up in that area, and I'm like, oh no, there's a bar over here. The map is street accurate,
That's
like to
crazy.
the building. It's incredible.
I mean, it is really the next evolution of Shenmue. That's really what it is.
Yeah, and like
it'll be interesting to see how Shenmue 3 stacks up to this ultimately.
Like, will Shenmue 3 match up to this game? Not just in terms of...
I would actually be surprised if it does.
So would I, to be honest. Look,
we'll see though.
I backed that game in there's no rational reason I backed Shenmue because I love Shenmue. I love Shenmue.
Why? That's a rational reason.
But do I think it's gonna? I mean, I'm worried Shenmue 3 is gonna come out and I'm not even gonna be able to play it.
I'm trying to stay positive.
I'm trying to stay positive for sure. But it's like that's the conundrum of Shenmue 3 is like if you don't...
You're setting yourself up for the fall.
Well, it's also if you don't upgrade it to be playable by a modern audience the way Yakuza is.
Yeah.
You're going to alienate a bunch of people that might otherwise try it. If you
also have those people that'll get pissed off.
Right. If you do update it and it doesn't control like an awkward piece of shit, people are going to get really mad because that's how Shenmue's supposed to be. But we just don't run with the right trigger anymore.
Right. Yeah. Gamers. Love ya. All right. It's time for our trailer of the week. It's a really short trailer, by the way. So if you want to ask questions, you need to start typing those in right now with the delay on the stream and everything. There's a game that just came out that we have not really covered much on GameFace, and I wanted to make sure we gave it a little bit of love, just in case people out there are interested in it will at least know that the game is out there and available.
And I have this game, but I didn't play it yet because I am 2 games behind in this series, and I'm waiting for the next remaster to come out to catch up.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to you in March.
Yeah. And I'll talk to you in February by the time I read the end of the title of this game. Kingdom Hearts 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. This is the launch trailer for the game. This game compiles how many Kingdom Hearts 3 games into one?
Well, it's actually one previously released game, Dream Drop Distance.
They remix.
They remastered Dream Drop Distance, and then there's the There's like a new bit of gameplay with Aqua from Birth by Sleep, and then there's a new movie trailer short thing that's supposed to also set up 3, but also be related that the mobile game Chai or something. I don't know.
It is so confusing.
It
is the most confusing game release of this year. I guarantee you that much. But
I'm thrilled. The next one will just be 3.
Yeah, it gets really confusing.
I'm really happy the 8th game will be the 3rd game
because they have like all the handheld versions, and there's like one point. It's just insane.
Well, a lot of that I think comes from the fact that they ended up having to stall for a decade while Nomura toiled away on Versus 13, and here we are.
All right, so this is it, the launch trailer for Kingdom Hearts 2.8. Get those questions in.
Seven sleeping keyholes must be found and unlocked.
You know this place, Aqua?
I visited once.
We're here to make sure that light lives on.
May our hearts be our guiding key.
So, Matt, what was your recommendation
while
the trailer was playing?
This one you probably should get one to keep, because the Kingdom Hearts games, especially the first Prince with the limited pin and all that stuff, those always become valuable because Disney fans, man. Disney fans love
and Square fans.
And Square fans and Kingdom Hearts fans and
the trifecta.
Yeah, they're the first printing stuff that has like the extra things in them. They're usually worth something later. Even if you don't want to sell them, it's something to have as sort of a cool thing in your collection.
Okay, here's the first question from The Legacy. If they're making Skate 4, do you think we will also release another SSX or bring back NBA Street to indirectly compete with NBA 2K?
No.
No to what?
NBA Street. I mean, I would love to see another SSX.
Yeah, I think everybody
But
would.
I think Steep has probably scared everybody off that for a while.
I mean, they're completely different games, though.
Yeah, but that's not going to matter to, like, investors.
No, you're probably right.
Try to explain the difference between Steep and SSX to, like, an EA investor and stock shareholder and see how far you get.
The last SSX tanked.
Yeah.
And I think it tanked because it went so far away from the formula that had made SSX so popular in the first place. And before that, I don't know if you remember or not, but there was a Wii game that came out, and that...
Oh, yeah, Blur, yeah.
And I really enjoyed that game. I had a blast with that game, but it also tanked. And on a platform with hundreds of millions install base. So it's not exactly encouraging for another one to
I
come.
would like to see remasters of Tricky and 3.
A remaster of Tricky, I think it would probably sell 5 million copies.
Yeah, but probably, I would imagine... EA doesn't seem too keen on remasters for some reason, which is weird because they've always neglected their back catalog. Until GOG came along, some of their old PC games were lost forever.
Yeah,
people thought. But like, I mean, maybe they don't want to go through the hassle of relicensing all that music, because I mean, obviously you at least have to get Tricky.
Yeah,
right?
I think they could probably get that pretty cheap though.
Yeah. But would
they even have to relicense it? I wonder.
Yes, for a new release they would.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I would buy that. I would buy an SSX, SSX 1 through 3 pack in heartbeat. I'd pay like 50, 60 for that. Yeah. I would be into that.
Oh, for sure.
I would actually be more into that than a new one.
Well, imagine it running.
At least I know those are
modern
good.
graphics at 60 frames a second.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I'd be all over it. Because the core of SSX Tricky is so good. It's so simple to figure out. Like, somebody can sit down, you can explain it to them in like a minute, and they get it. I got to spell tricky, and then once I do that, I can go crazy. Like, it's so... Yeah. It became way too complicated
it's
after
hard
yeah.
to rock a rhyme at times.
Especially one that's right on time.
Yes.
But, your question about NBA Street, no. I don't think they're going to bring back NBA Street.
I just feel like that subgenre is pretty much gone forever.
Yeah, the whole like arcade style sports thing, like that's left to like the indies to handle.
Maybe
now.
if that NBA Jam resurrection a few years ago had been good.
Yeah.
But it just didn't. Nobody really seemed to like that one very
The other
much.
part of it too is that EA just mentioned that it is still working on NBA Live, which no clue why EA is still working on that franchise.
Yeah.
They canceled the last one before it came out. It won't give up.
I wish EA would dip into their back catalog since they don't seem to really put out a lot of new content on a general basis. Like I'm sure they're hard up on dev teams or something. I don't know. But I'd love to see an SSX remaster collection. I'd love to see a Def Jam collection.
Oh, Fight for New York.
Those were fun games.
Burkhaw, what about Cool Borders?
I never played Cool Borders really.
I didn't either. That was always like the cheap knockoff. Like
I have my friend Miguel Concepcion, who's also game journalist. He loves Cool Border. He played a ton of Cool Borders too, if I remember right.
I know a lot of people that play Cool Borders, but after I played 1080 snowboarding on N64, Cool Borders just seemed like junk to me.
Yeah, that's true. 1080 sense of place really ruined the competition.
Yeah, Cool Borders was kind of like the corny chakabra version of snowboarding, where 1080 was kind of like the more classy, like more realistic game. I don't know. Once I played 1080,
it seems ridiculous. Like SSX3 and 1080 have this similar thing going on for me, where it's like, and it seems ridiculous now when you look at the graphics compared to today. But there was moments where it's like, wow, it's like you can smell the outdoors. It's so realistic and believable. And it's quiet. It's like you can hear the crunch of the powder.
Here's a good one from Justin Horman, who always asks good questions. With the recent release of Double Dragon 4, what game from the NES era do you think would work well with a new sequel like DD4 or Mega Man 9?
Double Dragon 4.
Yeah.
It just came out and got
Which
panned.
game do you think could have a sequel that would actually hold up in this day and age more than just for nostalgia?
As in, like...
I mean, to be perfectly honest, not many.
Yeah. Especially if you mean something I think would sell. If you mean something I think I'd have fun playing... I would like to see a new Blaster Master, and I would like to see a new Low G Man. Nobody remembers Low G Man, but I had a great time with that game.
Double Dragon 4 has been getting hammered. When
hard.
Famitsu gives a game a bad score, you know it's terrible.
It's either terrible or something didn't clear.
Yeah, exactly. The check didn't clear. I mean, honestly, I don't think most of the games from that era, other than the obvious ones that we could give you, were pretty bad. But if there's one game that I still think the gameplay, the core of it is still fun and could still work, I think it's Tecmo Bowl. Sports games. Like, sports games from that era are still fun because they're simple and they're easy to pick up and easy to play. I played Tecmo Bowl thousands of times. I can still play Tecmo Bowl and enjoy it. They're still doing Tecmo Bowl commercials. Like, they have that whole campaign for, what is it? Hyundai or something with Bo Jackson, where he's literally in the SUV driving down the field and the players are diving at him like they do. That game, I feel like, can always be revived, but every time they've done
Would you ever have imagined back then that they'd be using Tecmo Bowl references to sell cars?
In 30 years later or whatever? Yeah. But, that's a sports game that people didn't even care about football enjoyed playing.
Yeah.
And they've tried to revive it a couple times, and it's always been so wrong. Like, I remember the last time they did it, like, what happens is PR people send out feelers. And they send an email and say, hey, is anyone interested in, like, checking out this game? And that was what they did with the last Tecmo Bowl, like, revival or whatever. And I could tell I was, like, one of the only people that was like, yeah, sure. Because you know you're one of the only ones when they say, well, when do you want us to come by? And you say, what times do you have? And they're like, anytime you want.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
And they came by, and, I tried to be nice. But as soon as I saw it, I'm like, the spirit isn't here. Like, you have to have the core gameplay.
What you need to do is you need to make Tecmo Bowl. Bo Jackson destroys the NFL universe and embrace the ridiculousness of what made everybody love it.
Exactly. They tried to kind of bring
make it a good game.
They
you can't make it a good game. You got to make it an entertaining game.
You got to make it Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
You got to make it play like Tecmo Bowl.
Even Tecmo Super Bowl was kind of, it didn't have the luster that the NES one had.
I still played the living hell out of Super Bowl, though. But I played the original way
But we
more.
like in the lounge we had in high school, we had an NES and a Super Nintendo with those both games, and every time we'd go, everybody would always pick the NES one.
Yeah.
Everybody and everyone, there was the wrestling match to get Bo, but people just loved the way it felt and loved the way it played.
Super Bowl had like
maybe didn't care.
Had like more of the corny cutscenes and stuff like that, but yeah, the core gameplay of the first one was better. Super Cordon Bleu, Shane, do you have any more thoughts into a Sifted member meet and greet? I would love to do it. Where we do it is the big question. I don't know how many of you Sifters are in LA, but if you guys want to leave on the archive on the site, if you guys want to leave comments saying, hey, I'm from LA, we'll do it. We could do it like in a week. I can't do it this week because obviously the Super Bowl, but maybe like next weekend we can get together and have a couple beers. I am down whenever. So just let me know if you're in LA. Other than that, maybe a PAX meet and greet or something at some point if I feel like enough of you guys are going to be there. But if some of you guys are in LA, I'll hang out whenever. So just let me know. I'm sure Matt would maybe stop by for a beer as well.
In LA, yeah.
Anywhere else? No way.
I don't see the next time I'm going to PAX. So.
Oh, and then Cheater Hater filled us in on exactly what 2.8 was. It's a remaster, a movie, and a demo.
Norman expected me to say a Sega game. Sega games weren't on Nintendo, unless you're talking about the bootleg Tengen games.
Yeah. Here's a good one from...
I'd like to see more Shinobis.
Yeah, that's not bad.
A Shinobi remaster collection would be nice. Anything. Bring in Phantasy Star Online 2 to America.
Here's a good question for you, Matt. Mm-hmm. Would an HTC Vive version of Resident Evil 7 get you to play sooner?
No.
No? So the fact that the VR doesn't work on PC yet has no bearing
has nothing to do with it. I just don't care about the game. I'm not a horror fan, really, and especially look, like at least looking at the concept of that game, like I get why it's appealing to you, but I'd rather just watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre again. Like, at least that's over in 2 hours. Or an hour and a half. That's a pretty short movie.
Burke,
right?
Will there be more Switch-only Pack or Factor episodes this month? No. There won't. I think there's a Switch, at least one Switch question in almost every episode coming up this month. We did the one big episode that had like the biggest questions at the top because we wanted it to be timely after the big unveiling. And then some of the more obscure questions, some of the more detailed questions are kind of sprinkled into the rest of the episodes. So we had to put all of them in the first one because otherwise no one's going to care after that. And then we sprinkled the rest in to make sure that people who like Nintendo and care about Nintendo will have something for them in every episode for the rest of the month. So
that seems like the Pactor bread and butter is what Pactor thinks about Nintendo.
No, it is. I mean, honestly, it's tough because there aren't like fan sites for other platforms. Mm-hmm. Like there are, but they don't really pay attention. They're not as hardcore as the Nintendo fan sites. And if we do episodes on Nintendo, Pactor Factor does like twice the views it normally does because all the Nintendo sites pick it up and embed it in their web pages, and then people come to complain, and it does double or triple the traffic every single time. But I don't want to fall into that trap of like, oh well, all the Nintendo kids show up for Pactor Factor and then cut it off, because what I really care about the most is our subscribers. And the truth of the matter is the bulk of our subscribers don't give a crap about the Switch. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. And so we got to make sure that we're making episodes for everybody on Sifted, not just the Nintendo fans. Although I will say the Nintendo fans on Sifted are some of the most engaged people on the site, and they comment a lot. So there's...
I got nothing to play, so...
So that element kind of plays into it a little bit as well. They're really passionate, and I appreciate that, and it makes the site a better place to visit, and makes more people engaged. Yeah.
What is Nintendo? I mean, a 3DS, but
yeah,
talking about Wii U games, Nintendo has basically hung you out to dry.
Yeah, but a lot of Nintendo fans have other consoles. They're not just Nintendo fans, but they're most passionate about Nintendo. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into working on Pactor Factor to try to make it successful and make it a show that everyone wants to watch every week. And
also, Pactor deals with Nintendo as part of his normal job too. So
yeah,
he should know. It makes sense to ask him about Nintendo.
Yeah, but we can see the view counts. Like on our Switch-only episodes of Pactor Factor, the view counts are like way lower than they are for shows that have.
You mean on Sifted?
On Sifted, right? Yeah. Versus like once we put it out into the wilds on YouTube,
that's interesting.
And all the blogs pick it up.
Like I That's interesting. Like, I just watch it.
Yeah.
I don't even think of, I mean, just,
I don't either.
Pactor, watch
But you
it.
got to realize there's a lot of people who don't like Nintendo at all. And so if they see, and look, we're not going to like try to swindle people and say, hey, we have a bunch of questions about, or if it's an all Switch episode, we're like, it's the Switch.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to swindle people into watching it and they get halfway into it. They're like, oh, this is just all Nintendo stuff. So we try to be straight up with people so they know what they're getting into before they click on something. But yeah, we got to be smart about it. We got to make sure that we're serving our entire audience, not just Nintendo fans, but we want to keep them happy too. So, like I said, there's a lot that goes into the thinking behind Pactor.
I know Mike wants to know if I can two-peat my Oscar prediction. Best Picture is going to be La La Land.
Have you seen it yet?
Guarantee you. No.
I would never go see. I hate musicals.
I'll probably see it because I got to see it because it's Best Picture nominee. But my pick for Best Picture so far this year, and I haven't seen everything. I have not seen Manchester by the Sea, and I have not seen Moonlight yet. But my Best Picture pick would be Fences. Denzel and Viola Davis at their best, and an August Wilson play adapted. Love it. Please do the other 9.
So Gino Mike is asking for an update on Marcus. He missed the beginning of the show. Let me check my phone real quick and see if I have any new information, and I'll give it to you live right here, if I've got it. Nope. I have no new update on Marcus. And it's 10 o'clock here. Oh, wait. Maybe I do.
Do not see anything.
No. No new update.
Nope.
Nothing yet. So, stay tuned. We'll see how it goes.
This stuff happens in its own time.
Stay positive. Keep your fingers crossed.
And of course, for the people who are, close and involved in that, the last thing that's on their mind is telling us what's happening.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
They got their own stuff to deal with.
Yep. Scorpio, in your opinion, what's one thing Nintendo does better than anyone else besides developing games?
D-pads.
D-pads?
I love Nintendo D-pads.
I would say using its characters to get people to try new things. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's...
Like golf?
Yeah, like, I remember when I used to work at GameSpot, a lot of the times, like, a lot of the editorial guys there would be like, it's always Mario. It's Mario this, Mario that. And I would always argue, I'm like, but they used Mario as a tool to get people to try their new concepts. Like, he always fronts, like, all their new stuff. And they would be like, oh, you're just blind or whatever. But I think Nintendo does a good job of coming up with a crazy idea. And then some people might say just slapping, like, a mascot on it or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that if somebody sees Mario doing something versus some character they've never seen before, they're going to be far more likely to try that new idea. And I would contend that if Splatoon were a Mario game, it would have sold far better than Splatoon did. If it was the same mechanics, same idea, same map, same everything, except just swap out that art for Splatoon with the Mushroom Kingdom, I guarantee it would have sold even more, and it probably would be a legitimate esport. So,
wasn't that originally... early prototypes were Mario.
I don't know.
That's what I read. It was kind of like a Mario Sunshine-ish.
No, I hadn't heard that
thing. And then at some point, the placeholder like squid creature was like just kind of like, no, let's go with that.
Yeah,
like,
Nintendo has gotten away from that a little bit over the last 10 years. Like, it used to be really good at it, but over the last like decade, like some of the concepts they have, like just created some goofy character to try and front it. And in all honesty, it hasn't worked out that great for Nintendo with those new games. So.
It's been a while since they created something that really caught on in the mainstream popular mind.
You're right. And maybe that's part of it because they've kind of switched their strategy.
Even Pikmin is really not known outside of enthusiast circles.
Yeah.
And I love Pikmin. Where the hell is Pikmin 4?
It should be coming.
That's the most disappointing prediction you didn't get right for the Switch so far, is that they haven't talked about Pikmin 4 at all.
They said it, Miyamoto said it's done. I have no idea. Maybe there's going to be like another surprise, like Diddy Kong racing at the holidays or something.
It'd be a nice thing to have for the holiday, yeah. But Wolfox 10JC is asking for Super Bowl predictions.
Well, Sam's a Patriots fan, and I still like him, believe it or not. I mean, you got to pick the Patriots.
You don't think the Falcons can do that?
I think the Falcons can win. I just think you'd be dumb to pick any other team at the Patriots. I mean, look, back when the Patriots lost Super Bowls against the Giants, I picked the Patriots in those games too. So it's just if you're betting and you're ignoring the line, the Patriots. What's the line for the game, Sam?
I think it's only like 3.
It's only 3, then I go Patriots. If it was like a 6-point spread, I'd probably go Falcons. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to find that anywhere. So I go Pats. As much as it pains me to say it.
You just said go Pats.
I did. Please don't record that and loop it or anything. I'll never say it again. Oh, there's a ton of questions.
Gino, Mike, I would be thrilled if Fences beat out La La Land at the Oscars, but I think you're talking about the SAG Awards, which tend to be more focused on performance, and Fences was definitely a performance tour de force. I feel like La La Land has it wrapped up for the Oscars because the Oscars love movies about themselves. Love movies about Hollywood. That's the only reason The Artist won Best Picture, and that was ridiculous.
I do see the stand user here says, go Falcons, F the Pats. Man after my own heart.
They have, it's like 58 points for the...
Over?
Yeah.
That's pretty, I mean, it's Vegas. They're always right on the money.
It's like 30 points per team.
I think that might be pretty accurate.
So is this?
I think I'd probably take the under on that, though.
So is the stand user a Falcons fan, or they just don't like the
I think he's a
Patriots?
Packers fan, actually, if I remember correctly.
Well, all those teams aren't playing.
Spoken like a true pompous Patriots fan. Let's see, is there one more? Cowboys fan in there. I think that's it.
Mm.
All right, party people. Thanks for sticking around so late. I know the stand users in Japan.
mere
I have
3
no idea
hours.
what time that is.
What would that be like?
Yesterday?
No, it would be tomorrow. It would
Depends
be
on
like,
if you go over the international
I think it'd be
date
like
line.
1 p.m. tomorrow. I think, unless I'm totally
That's about right.
mixing my.
I think it's 12 hours ahead, right?
No, I think 9.
No, I mean 10 hours ahead. It's
9 or 10 hours, depending on whether it's
I think
daylight
it's
savings or not.
10 ahead, yeah. All right. That's it for GameFace.
9 or 10 back, but then tomorrow.
But then if you come this way over the international date line, you actually relive the same
we
period
relive
of
the same-
time
yeah.
again.
It's like I always used to tell you when you'd go to Japan and I wasn't. I'm just like, don't tell me what happens.
Yeah. So that's it for GameFace episode 73 right here on Sifted Games. Thanks to everybody who tuned in on the stream and asked us great questions at the end. Stay in tune to our Twitter feed. We'll update on Marcus as best we can. I don't think his wife is going to take over his Twitter feed while this is going on to keep people informed. So we'll do the best that we can to let you guys know what's going on with Marcus on the site as well. We'll probably pop into that story that we published today about it, and in the comments we'll kind of update you as we get new news. Obviously being very sensitive to his family and everything. So we'll give you everything that we can. I promise you that. So another great show, Matt. Sam, good luck. You're going to need it.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing to Sam after this? What are you?
Everybody have an awesome night. GameFace is up and out.